and I wrote some liner notes for this one. So welcome back to the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel as we gather the crew back to discuss the year 1994. And look in the squares here tonight. We got the crew back together, and I'll introduce everybody in a minute. But many say like grunge killed heavy metal, and possibly it killed the commercial side of hair and glam and metal and that style and some of the traditional stuff. But in the early '90s, it was really a melting pot of new bands and genres and bands changing genres a little bit. We were selling in the shop back then a ton of different things like industrial, black metal, death metal, new metals kind of starting. Of course, the grunge stuff, we sold a bunch of that. I'm going to mention some of the titles that were getting heavy rotation in the shop that year. Never really done this before. But I'll just start off with stuff that I remember as I was getting ready to do this episode. I was looking at all these albums. There was no way I could put them all in my top five, top 10, of course. But I remember like the different employees I had then, different people come to work, they played different stuff. And I remember like Nine Inch Nails Downward Spiral was getting tons of
Oh,
play. Marilyn
hell yeah.
Manson's Portrait of American Family,
Yep.
Soundgarden, Super Unknown, Slayer was Divine Intervention that year. Grave with Solus, Black Sabbath, Cross Purposes, of course, Pantera is Far Beyond Driven, Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies, Megadeth, Euthanasia, Cradle of Filth was fairly new then, pretty much with Principle of Evil Made Flesh. Had the debut album from Korn. I remember Cannibal Corpse of Bleeding being on all the time. Testament Low, Danzig 4, Merciful Fate with a pretty strong album too, with Time, Obituary World Demise. That's just a few that I was thinking about. And I wonder how many of these are going to turn up on folks' lists tonight.
Did you
Some of
have
the
therapy with trouble gum?
who?
Therapy with trouble gum?
I have
That's
no
a good
idea.
pull.
I don't
Did you
know.
have it in the store? Like, do you remember anything?
What's that? I was just
Therapy, the
No, the
Trouble
band
Gum
Therapy.
album.
Oh, well, I don't know. I didn't write that one down, so I don't know if that's going to be in anybody's list or not. So, my question was asking what ones I mentioned would turn up in somebody's list, but I'm not going to start asking for new ones to come out. Some of the notable events from 1994 was Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain died April 8th. John Wayne Gacy was executed May 10th. Formula One legend Ayrton Senna was killed at the San Marino Grand Prix on May 1st. Richard Nixon died April 22nd. Actor Cesar Romero was near and dear to my heart because he played Joker on Batman 66, died on January 1st. Telly Savalas, January 22nd, Kojak, and Peter Cushing from all the great horror movies, August 11th. June 17th, the O.J. Simpson chase had everybody glued to the TV. Remember that if you're from Middletown area, the Metallica tour was going on that night at the
Yeah.
fairgrounds.
Yeah. I was there.
August 12th, Woodstock 94 begins in Saugerties. May
I
26th,
was there.
the King of Pop married Lisa Marie Presley, which was
Ah.
weird. Still is.
So bizarre.
A little bit of sports news. Dallas Cowboys won the Super Bowl.
A boom.
The New York Rangers won the Stanley Cup, so we can't chant 1940 anymore. What a bummer.
Right.
The World Series was not held due to the Major League Baseball strike.
That's right.
And what else? Al Unser Jr. won the Indy 500. Sterling Marlin won the Daytona 500. The number one grossing film was The Lion King. Number one TV show. I hope he's going to like this. Seinfeld. And Pulp Fiction was the highest grossing independent film ever released at that time. So that's the news from 1994. We've all got our top fives. Ralph and Tony Dio requested to go last, but let's introduce everybody. We got Tony Dio back from North Carolina. We've got Count Ralphus. We've got Ant Master 5 back. He hasn't been on in a while. He has his own channel. Check it out on YouTube. Go subscribe. Do all that good stuff.
Channel.
The Gen X Locker, and that's Ant Master 5 who's back with us. We got the Miles of Metal back. He's been working Wednesdays, haven't been with. Great to have him back on the channel because we got James Delisle from the mighty Crucial Pain. We got our Center Square Obi, who's taken off a few weeks and is back. We got Ed Farsley from Armageddon Productions. Of course, Count Ralph is from our local metal historian, we call him. And Denny Barth from the Mighty Aggression. Denny pretended he wasn't going to come on tonight, but he came back because Miles and Ovi were here. So what a great year for metal. It was like I said, it was a changing point. There was so many different genres, like we were playing on the store, and so much great music. And there's so much. I was looking up some of it, just so much stuff from '94. And I'm glad we decided to touch base on it. How about we kick things off with Miles? Then I'm going to go over to Ant Master. We'll go to Obi. We'll go to James. And I just got to make sure that the last in line is going to be Tony Dio and Count Ralph. They're going to arm wrestle over it.
All right.
We're doing 4 and 5. Or are we
We're doing
all
top,
the
we're
list of
doing
them?
all 5 right now. Then we're going
All
back
right.
for honorable mentions.
Right.
All right. So it's good to see everybody again. Been working and stuff. Then I got slammed by a hurricane and I was working
Oh,
even
yeah.
more. So, it's been crazy. But 1994, really going into this year, I know we had kind of talked about it before, but I was like really trying to think of what albums came out in 1994. And I was kind of drawing blanks for a little. I knew my top 5 off the bat, but I said, let me go type in, see what albums came out in 94. And then the list got tougher because I was like, holy shit. I didn't know these many good albums came out in 19. Well, I didn't remember that all these albums came out in 94. So
how old were you in 94, Miles?
I was 1.
Oh, Jesus. All right.
Holy fuck.
Wow.
That's all good. It's all good.
But getting into metal and stuff like that, I recognize the years on when albums came out and stuff like that, going through, listening to records. But we had did a show on 1994 death metal, and those 4 records that we talked about in that show, I didn't pick them again on here because they would probably make 4 of the top 5. So I tried to keep those out. So, but there are a bunch of good records that came out in 94. So getting into it, number 5, I'm going to go with Gorment, death metal band from Sweden. They came out with a record called The Ending Quest. Really good death metal record. I think it's a very underrated death metal record. It has that kind of M2 tone. That very, Swedish guitar sound, but it's got that doomy element with it. And, the vocals are just straight up guttural and, with the doom and the chainsaw guitars, it's just an amazing, underrated death metal record for anybody who hasn't heard of this record, Gorment, The Ending Quest. I see it get brought up a lot now, but it's a very underrated death metal record. So Gorment, The Ending Quest coming in at number 5. So number 4, these are some pretty well-known records if you're in the like underground metal. So number 4, I'm going with Dark Throne, Transylvanian Hunger. This record, in my opinion, is just so amazing because what it does great is that it's a very lo-fi recorded record, like, all Scandinavian early black metal. But the riffs in here in just that very distorted way is just so creepy, in my opinion. When I first heard this record, I couldn't get into it really that much because I loved the Under a Funeral Moon and Blazing the Northern Sky a whole bunch. And this was a lot more stripped down and raw. But there was one time when I listened to this record and it hit me that, listening through this whole record, the visuals that I got is that just think of yourself in a blizzard, a dark blizzard in the middle of the night. And off in the distance, you can see this shadowy figure. You can't make it out, but it's there. That's what the riffs sound like on this record. And I mean, Finrez and Nocturnal Culto, they bring it on this record. Very lo-fi, but very, very, very quintessential black metal right here. So that is Transylvanian Hunger. Coming in at number 3, another well-known one, coming from Ovi's home country, De Mysteriis Dom Satanas by Mayhem. One of the greatest black metal records ever released. You know, there's not much you can say about this record if you're into black metal. I mean, it's so well known. Mayhem is so well known. To me, Mayhem has come close to topping this record, but they haven't done it. You have Funeral Fog. I mean, Freezing Moon is one of the quintessential black metal songs ever. Buried by Time and Dust, the title track, Life Eternal, which is actually written by the previous singer, which is dead. It was in his his note, if you know what I'm getting at. Euronymous took the lyrics to the song, put guitars to it. It just came out so amazing. One of the creepiest things about this record, I mean, it's like a broken record here. Euronymous and Varg both play on this record. The whole story with that. Very infamous record, but one of the best metal records ever released, in my opinion. So, De Mysteriis Dom Satanas at number 3. Number 2 is probably my favorite black metal record ever released, and that is In the Nightside Eclipse by Emperor.
Wow.
I mean, not much to say about this record. If you're into black metal, it's one of the most well-known black metal records as well. This is like the early days of symphonic black metal, but it's still raw. It's still blasting in your face. You know, it introduces keyboards in there, but you know, sometimes keyboards can be lame. This is one of the times where it's not. I mean, come on. I Am the Black Wizards, the burning shadows of silence. I mean, Beyond the Great Vast Forest. I mean, you can go on for days about this record. It is so well known. So going in, that's number 2. And number 1, I finally get to talk about this band on this show. And this album means so much to me just because of where I live and where I'm from. And that is
Wow.
When the Kite String Pops. This band, for people that don't know, they're from where I live. They're from South Louisiana, like Dahoma, Thibodaux, Morgan City area. This is one of the only bands that we have down here. Now you have the New Orleans bands, but this band was not part of that like New Orleans scene. But I mean, if you're from down here, this album is fucking legendary. I mean, growing up, this was like, man, acid bath. If you're a metalhead from South Louisiana and you don't own this record, you're not from South Louisiana and you're not a metalhead. I know y'all had Sammy on this show a few times, and I watch it every time.
Oh yeah, Sam
He's one
Pierre's
of
been on
my
a few
favorite
times.
musicians. Him and Goat Whore.
Horse and Go Whore now.
Yeah, Goat Horse, one of my favorite bands. But this, I see it get talked about a lot now. And it's very deserving that it's getting its recognition. What's so great about this record is it blends in so many genres. Here you have sludge metal, you have the death metal, you have bits and pieces of black metal, you have everything just boiled in here. So many genres boiled into this one album. But the good thing is, it's all the fucked up parts of each genre. It's just so fucking nasty. I mean, you have Cassie Eats Cockroaches. I mean, come on. The lyrics on that song is crazy. You have Dope Fiend. If I put this cigarette out on you, would you love me? You know, just craziness all on this record. It's a shame that they only came out with 2 releases because, and it's been, you know, people have been talking about a reunion of Acid Bath for forever. You know, just great great Southern fucking metal. My number one album of 1994, When This Kite String Pops by Acid Bath.
Boy, Miles, you
Hey,
got
they did kind of like a not a reunion, but Sammy did a show with
Right, yeah.
an acid bath tribute band, and I
Mhm.
guess
Yeah, I
that's as
seen
close as
that.
you would ever get. And another great thing though is to bring up is that in Steve's summary of 1994, he talks about John Wayne Gacy getting executed, and
Yeah,
that's a John Wayne Gacy painting on
Yep.
Yes,
that's
you're
one of his
correct.
actual paintings.
Yeah.
And the back cover is a John Wayne Gacy painting too.
Boy, Miles came out of the box with some heavy stuff to start this off tonight.
Yep. And just right here,
Yeah.
there's young Sammy right there. Oh, right
Oh,
there
yeah.
with the incantation shirt on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
So
The image of the band just screams 90s, like just how they looked.
Mm-hmm.
and they
Oh,
were
yeah.
and they were so fucked up. The lyrics are just so fucked up. I love it.
All right. Ant Master, would you like to go second?
Oh yeah, I'll take the wheel for second bid.
All right. So welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
So yeah, good to see everybody. Ant Master 5 in the house. Don't forget the 5. I went with with kind of a hodgepodge of different albums. A lot of them our host actually mentioned in the intro. So I was sitting there and I was like, doing the side. I was like, oh, I have that one. Oh, I have that one. But I'm kind of an elect of so many different genres of how I grew up, being a Gen Xer and being a musician. So so many things affected me. And then like being a radio DJ, hence why I was at Woodstock 94. I was a radio intern at the time. So so many different genres affected me, even though I was kind of like my gateway band was Def Leppard. I was a metalhead, but I kind of transcended into so many other things. Like not until I got into high school, was when I finally dabbled in death metal and stuff like that. So for my top 5, my first pick or my fifth pick, I'm gonna go from 5 to 4. My number 1 basically. My number 5 pick was Megadeth's Euthanasia, which was released on Capitol Records in November of '94. Don't quote me. This is the only thing I didn't do research on. And if anybody wants to chime in, please do. Was that the last studio album of the classic lineup, still with Marty Friedman and Nick Menza?
No,
That
there's
I
one more.
Okay. Was
Risk.
Cryptic
Risk
Writings
was
is
after.
the last
okay,
one.
Risk. We don't speak of Risk.
Cryptic Writings is the last one with Nick Menza.
Right. All right. Yeah, that was I apologize. I just, because I do admit, like right around the 95 mark is kind of when I kind of fell off the Megadeth train and then kind of came back. But I did love the album. And speaking of trains, Train of Consequences, which was, I just thought was just a break from the norm, but it still had that Mega Dave, edge to it. The killing, the à tout le monde. We Dave speaks in French, which was kind of like almost like a nod almost to Fade to Black, like lyrically.
Yes.
And what I always thought was a great song was Victory, because the way Victory was written was basically a timeline of the albums. I mean, it starts off with so one day I started telling everybody that killing was my business and business was good. It talks about The Conjuring, and it's just like lyrically, it's like, what a great fucking song, I understand it fell by the wayside with like a lot of like, old school Megadeth fans, but it's, for me, it was, a rock fantasy purchase. In fact, I think every album here that I'm going to mention is a rock fantasy purchase. So it'll always be close to me. So there you go. Number 4, I went with Nirvana Unplugged in New York. This was kind of an emotional album for me because I had an opportunity to go to this and didn't go.
Oh,
And I still kick myself to this day. A guy that I worked with in radio was actually friends with somebody that worked for Sony Music, and it was done at the Sony Music Studios down in Hell's Kitchen on 10th Avenue. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. You know, I was, you know, and I admit I was still living at home, and I was like, yeah, my mom won't let me. I was 19.
Damn.
I was still in college. Well, I don't think you should be going into Manhattan to go see some crappy music show. But just, I was always entranced by the MTV Unplugged. You know, from Alice in Chains, even to the 10,000 Maniacs, to LL Cool J, which I understand are not in any way, shape, or form in the genre of metal, but I always loved artists stripping it down and you know, playing it stripped down, which is kind of like what I do in my, you know, in my acoustic music project. So, you know, when that record hit, I was like, you know, totally, you know, just totally taken back by it. And it was still their classic lineup. You know, Dave Grohl was then, you know, the drummer, Chris Novoselic on bass. And then that was the first album where you kind of saw Pat Smear come in, and he was the original guitarist for a neo punk band called the Germs, which was kind of interesting because he was a lot older than most of the members of Nirvana. In fact, I think he's a boomer, and all the rest of the members of Nirvana were Gen Xers.
That's right.
But a great album. You had, you know, they did, you know, stripped down versions of Polly, Something in the Way, which was just so friggin' haunting. I mean, I could just, yeah, an album that you know, every album that I'm going to mention is an album that, you know, you drop the needle on the first track and you don't take it off until, you know, it finishes. Penny Royal Tea. And then, I always loved just Chris Novoselic's acoustic bass work on Come As You Are. Like, it was just,
Yeah.
oh God, it's just so just a great album. And
I got
you
an
know, and then
original first pressing of of that album. Don't
Wow.
ask me why.
nice,
Wow.
'Cause I've
nice,
never
Ralph.
actually listened to it, but it's a first pressing of it.
And out of
That's
all of the
awesome.
and out of all the ones I'm mentioning, you know, this is one album that has Sight, you know, because there was, you know, the whole, you know, video show released for it. So that's why it really can, you know, kind of, you know, captivates the audience as well. So it's like when you see it, you know, because it's available on YouTube and everything else. And then when you listen to the tracks, you can kind of close your eyes and visually see that setup on how the stage was with the candles, and you know, it was just great album. So for my number 3, I'm gonna get the side eye from Steve. I'm gonna go with Carcass's Heartwork.
All right.
That's a
Uh,
1994. I didn't even see that on any of my
so
lists.
Yeah.
so it was so in Europe it was released in 93, but we didn't get it in the US until January 11th of 1994.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
but
I
that's
remember
a 1993 release. Then no, it
yeah,
doesn't
so
matter if it's matter if it's
I'm still gonna
released in
go
America.
being that it was released in the United States in 94, and you know, Steve had a little bit of a
Counts, huh?
release thing in 94. That's why I put it on my list. I understand, you know,
Yeah.
so for my cousins in Europe that were able to get it in 93, awesome. I didn't get it until January of 94 when it came
Yeah.
out, and I did get it opening day on Earache Columbia Records. Jeff Walker, Michael Ahmet, Ken Owen, who unfortunately left the band after suffering a cerebral hemorrhage. Um, I this was my intro to Carcass. I admit, that's when I then, you know, looked into the back catalog. This album was just kind of got it on a whim. Steve
Yeah.
had a release party for it, and I was like, yeah, I'll buy it, and threw it in my Sony Discman, clicked the mega bass, and just completely blown away. You know, tracks like Blind Bleeding the Blind,
Yeah.
This Mortal Coil. And then they released the video for the title track, Heartwork, which I guess the album cover depicts a sculpture by the late great H.R. Geiger, who came up with the concept of the alien design from the Alien movies. And the sculpture was something called Life Support, which was a aluminum peace symbol with being that I'm in the medical field, and a 1,000 bag of normal saline with 2 IV lines running into the spinal column with 2 hands. It was just the most obscure yet darkest sculpture you've ever seen. And then the video actually portrays, even though it's an actor, it's not Geiger, like the construction of said sculpture, which was pretty unique. And I love this album. You know, I won't talk about what I've always talked about on this show.
No,
Some
keep
people
that
definitely butted heads with me, but to me, it is a hill I will die on. It is one of my favorite albums. And to this day, I love this album.
Excellent.
I actually
my
seen
number-
that sculpture in person.
Did
I
you?
went to the record release for that album was in
Really?
New York City at a H.R. Giger art exhibit, and they sent Rock Fantasy some passes for free, and he didn't care to go for whatever, or
Nice.
couldn't make it. So me and Rob Yench from Morpheus Descends and Brad Mater went down, and
Okay.
Carcass was there. They had the sculpture there. They had all his paintings in this big art gallery. It was fucking amazing.
Oh,
And Rob
nice.
went to that?
Yeah, Yench and me and Brad Mater
Hmm.
all went down to it.
Interesting.
Very
And
interesting.
Keeler sat home and watched like a football game or something.
Probably.
All right.
I didn't even listen
On
to
that note-
Carcass then.
The irony of this, why I'm smiling, Steve knows.
Yeah,
But all
of
right.
course.
No, number 2. Let's move right along, shall we? Number 2, I'm going with Alice in Chains' "Jar of Flies" on Columbia
Strong
Records,
record.
released on January 25th, 1994. I understand it was an EP. I was always a diehard Alice in Chains fan. Since the days of Facelift, and of course Dirt. This, being this was an EP, this was the first album, even though it's an EP, that Mike Ionez steps in as the bass player. Mike Starr
Yep.
was definitely succumbing to his addictions and everything else, and he did leave the band. And I recently, kind of reintroduced myself to this record. I'm going through a midlife crisis at 49 now, and I picked up playing bass. Don't ask me why. And just started listening to, the comparisons between Mike Starr and Mike Ionez, and how, Mike Ionez picked up the reins on bass and, went, forth with that. And, you listen to these quick bass riffs on, tracks like, especially like No Excuses and I Stay Away. And they speak to me, and it's just a great album. And this album, is, here I am, I'm 19 years old. I'm in college. I have no idea what I want to do with my life. And these are the songs that, I'm running on my Sony Discman as I'm, driving to school in the morning. I'm not trying to get poetic, but, watching the sunrise over the, the mountains and, in Mount Hope, coming into like the way we got, well, Keeler knows, like, like
Yep.
Pilgrim's Corners Road, Tally Ho Road, over by
Yeah.
the Carmelites. That's how I used to, go to,
Yeah.
SUNY Orange back in the day.
Yeah.
So you're like, those car rides in the morning, just, clutching my coffee, car seats freezing, and listening to Jar of Flies is just something that just sticks with me. I mean, from a Gen X perspective, it's just, it spoke to me, spoke to my generation. And I love the album. I just absolutely
album.
love the album.
They recently, I think last year, actually released that on vinyl.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I saw a ton of that record.
Same.
Yeah.
And
it
of course, I
sells
have
great.
to, give credit to the track Nutshell, which was like probably one of,
Mm.
when I first started my acoustic project, it was one of the first songs that I remember saying, I'm going to play that. I mean, I don't sing it as well as Lane, but
Mm.
I think I got the chord structure almost down.
At the time, and God knows where it went, Anthony, you remember I had a promotional item that Epic sent me. It was a actual jar of flies. It was a glass jar
I do remember
with
that.
the logo on top, like a mason jar,
Yeah.
with like the plastic like flies all glued inside of it.
Yeah.
Wherever
The
that
also-
went, who knows?
The original CD release came, like, if you're looking at the spine of the CD,
It was
like
in the spine,
here?
yeah.
yes, that was all full of plastic flies.
So I
Okay.
have that. I should have. Oh God,
Oh, you
why
do
didn't I
have it.
dig it out? Yeah, I do have that CD.
That's
Yeah,
actually
that
very
CD.
it's actually very rare now. It's like
Yeah.
one of the rare ones.
I bet.
Right.
Kind of
And,
reminds
for
me.
my
Yeah.
number one.
ahead.
I went with the March 28th, 1994's release of Pink Floyd's The Division Bell.
Great.
Nice.
I didn't even
just-
think of that album for
Oh,
this
yeah.
year.
Me neither. Me neither.
This was I mean, everything about this album and everything about this tour is just right here with me. I've always been a Pink Floyd fan. I mean, I have Dark Side of the Moon tattooed on my arm, my first tattoo. Actually, Eddie Romeo actually
Mhm.
gave me these. I have the two
Wow.
stand-up division bell heads.
God, Got
So I
something you
keep them
don't
up
have,
here in the
Ralph?
I
What's that?
keep them up here in the Gen X locker, and it's
Does
one
he,
literally just fell from my top shelf.
Oh
And
no.
I had to glue it back, so that's why they're down below now. I apologize that they're not completely on camera.
Well, like
When are they from, Anthony? When did you get them?
Eddie literally just gave me these this summer.
so they
But is
must
it
be
like from
new.
back in the day?
No, I think he got them from one of his distributors. As
Oh,
far as
yeah.
I know,
it's
I don't
something
know.
new.
Something
Okay.
newer. than-
Yeah, it was definitely a surprise. He had them wrapped up, and he was like, "Dude, I got like you the awesomest present." And look, I don't care, man. I'll play the I'll play the sensitivity card. I opened up that package and I did cry, and I gave him the biggest fucking hug because Eddie and I,
Nice.
we went to this concert.
You were at Giant
I
Stadium for that?
No, we went to Yankee Stadium
Oh,
for
I
this
was
one.
at Giant
I
Stadium.
was at that. I was at that show. It was fucking
And
incredible.
it was funny because I had bought the tickets at a former competitor of Steve's at Soundtracks over on Dawson
Soundtracks.
Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob Florio. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
I remember that was like the first time I remember going to a record store and camping out. Like,
Yeah,
I went
because-
there like 4
yeah.
o'clock in the morning, and Rob went and like opened up the door at like 9. He was like, "What are you fucking doing here?" And I'm like, "Well, you have that Ticketmaster computer thing, right?" And I came to buy tickets for Pink Floyd. Shut
I'm
up.
surprised
You're
you were the
making
only
money.
one waiting in line.
There was a couple of people, but I
Yeah.
was definitely the first one there. I got there at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and
Yeah,
other
that
people
was
showed up.
that was in those years. That was the place to get the tickets. You can remember.
Yeah, that's where I
Yeah.
got them.
Years before that, it was Sears.
So I
Yeah.
had got they had a kiosk there too.
Yeah.
And then Macy's actually had one.
Yes.
And so I purchased the tickets, and I actually gave the ticket to Ed for his birthday. So for his 19th birthday in June of that same year, 94, I gave Eddie that ticket. So we went to go see them in May of 94.
Wow.
And I was like, "Ah, this is your early birthday present." But the album, it was their first release since a
Momentary lapse of reason.
Yeah.
I had to say it with an English accent, of course. And of course, since now the departure of Roger Waters, I was never a fan of Roger Waters. I always thought that Floyd did fine without him. I know that people want to, kill me with sticks when I say it, but whatever. But just a landmark album. They released their first single of Keep Talking, then High Hopes. And High Hopes was always a track that resonated with me and my friends because it was about friendship and growing up and losing friends and reconnecting and then realizing old friends have since gone. So it's just an album that's always going to stay with me. And I'm just glad I got to see them on that tour. And there's really nothing bad I could say about the album at all. So that is definitely my number one pick.
Awesome.
I got a live bootleg VHS of that actual show at Yankee Stadium.
Wow.
And this is the first pressing of the album that I got back then. And
Yeah.
at that time we weren't getting vinyl
Nice.
much in the States, so it was only like a few things that I even have on vinyl from this year.
I don't know where it was recorded, but later on I remember getting the CD Pulse, the live CD from Steve.
Sure. Yep.
And the one that Steve had, which is still in one of these boxes in the locker, had the 2 AA batteries with the blinking light.
Yes.
Yeah. I've still got one. It still blinks.
Yeah. And
Really?
I remember
It
when
still
I plugged
blinks?
in,
Yeah, all you gotta do is change the batteries. And it's
Yeah,
just
you
double
can.
A
Mine
batteries.
lasted like 3 years, and then it finally went dead. I didn't think of ever
mine
trying to change
too,
the
Ralph.
Yeah.
And then
battery.
I
You can
changed the
replace
batteries.
them.
Like I pulled the little card out. I was like, "Oh, cool! It's just 2 AA's." So I was still living at home at the time, and I'm
Oh,
like,
I
"Well,
didn't
we don't
even
need these
realize.
batteries in the remote."
Wow. I wonder if mine still
Those
work.
batteries are leaking by now, Count.
Yeah,
I was
Count,
I was
hopefully-
sad when it one day I just noticed that it wasn't blinking
Yeah,
anymore. And I was
stopped
like,
blinking,
oh
it was slower.
man. It had it for like 3 years, that little red light.
All righty. Well, thanks, Ant.
Wow.
We'll circle back. I'm so glad you brought up Division Bell because I totally overlooked
Yeah,
it.
man. I was gonna say like a few of them you mentioned, like you mentioned Jar of Flies and Euthanasia, and so I was like,
And
there you
Division
go.
Bell
So-
should have been in my monologue. I'm
Oh, yeah.
sorry. So
all
as we go
Give it an honorable mention. It's an honorable mention.
you are the man. As we move over to Norway, to our
Right.
vampire Obi.
Obi.
Wake up, Obi.
Yeah. I'm awake.
Obi's been on recess. He hasn't been with us for a few weeks, and it's good to have him back. So
He's been
let's hear
growing
it.
his beard. He's been growing his beard.
Yeah,
He needs to be alone.
he's up to something.
Good to be back. I've just been working out and just I don't care. I've not been thinking about things. It's just growed out and I've just been
There you
pumping
go.
iron. So
Cool, man.
it's laziness, I guess. But so 1994 is I was 13, started the junior high, was my first year of like discovering metal. So it's kind of an essential year for me. I discovered like that there were more powerful thing than Metallica out in the world and stuff, because back then I thought that was the most heavy thing I've ever heard, and then suddenly, yeah, I was revealed that it was nope, that wasn't the case. So I practically just any metal I could get my hands on, I would just listen to, because it's like, at that age when you're 13, you're just like a sponge. You just want to take in everything that's new and just evolve,
Yeah.
So I just took the 5 albums that I really listened most to back then, and I still listen to them today, to this day, because it's like the first thing you discover, it sticks with you for life. So today wasn't really a challenge for me. It's like only challenge was that I couldn't like pick 50 albums, but yeah. So for number 5, I'm going to go with God, Flesh, Selfless. It's Justin and Nick from Napalm Death.
Yeah.
And their previous album, Pure, was hardly any guitar at all. It was like the more commercial album where people got to know them and stuff. And then luckily by Selfless, they brought back some more guitar with Blackbone Angel and a lot of good songs. It's a really good album, and it's cool artwork like Ralph has showed. It's a Parasite, I believe.
Yeah.
Because a Parasite isn't Selfless, so it's kind of a play on the title there. So
Yeah, it looks like bacteria or something, like some kind of
yeah,
bacteria.
Okay. Yeah, it's a really good album. It's I've been listening to it. I mean I discovered Street Cleaner and stuff afterwards, but that was like the first new album I discovered of them. So as for number 4, I'm going to do Napalm Death with Fear, Emptiness, Despair.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm friends with Mitch, and he told me a little about the album and stuff, because the album has a very unique sound. It doesn't sound like any other Napalm Death album. They were in a transition period from moving on more away from grindcore into more experimental, because Napalm Death loves to like try new things. You don't find a Napalm record that sounds the same like. So, but the reason why the album sounds so strange is, maybe Dennis can put in a word or two here, is because Jesse Potato's guitar has a dark tone. No matter what he did with the guitar, it had a dark tone. So it had that sound no matter what strings or how they tuned it. It had a dark tone. Mitch told me. So that's why it's a particular sound of Fear, Emptiness, Despair, because he has that red guitar he always used live and stuff. I don't know, Dennis. Could
I
you?
think they added a lot more groove to that album compared to like the stuff before. It definitely had a little bit more groove to it and a slicker production. But it was a good like breath of fresh air, kind of, that it wasn't the same album over and over again. Some people complained that they had changed their style and wasn't as brutal, but it was a good album. I thought it was real catchy and memorable.
Yeah, a lot of people I see complain about that record and stuff like that because of the change, but I always liked it. The grooviness, I thought that Napalm Death did a great job with that, keeping like the intensity, but getting some groove in there.
Yeah.
So intense.
Yeah.
Dennis, could you put off your mute?
Yeah, like
So
I But yeah, like exactly what you said, right? It's sometimes like guitar players and things like that will have their own sound regardless of what equipment they're using. But in this case, it's just the way that they fix their distortion and how it's set up. It's gonna always sound like that, no matter how they play with it.
Yeah, because I'm not a guitar player, so I don't understand why our guitar is dark toned. It's like you can't do anything with it. It's stuck in that dark tone, as Mitch told me. They tried anything.
Most guitar player, including myself, don't know what the fuck we're doing half the time. So, so, so yeah, but it's it is what it is. The way that they set it up, it's I always try to get that like ANTM like buzz like sound like that they have, and I got my metal fucking noise whatever boss and I metal zone and I crank it
Metal
and it's
Zone.
still yeah it's still not as like in your face as the way to do it. It's like they strum their guitar and it sounds like just one large gigantic string. So, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
The really good thing about Fair Emptiness Despair, you get to hear Denny Herrera, the drummer. You get to hear he does something beside the blast beats. You hear he has a lot of rhythms. He changed the sticks, so he plays with the backside of the sticks. It's a really heavy drums, so it's a really cool album. Really, it's like I feel it. If you listen to it and give it a chance, you find a lot of cool stuff on it. So moving for number 3. It's gonna be Incantation with the Mortal Throne of the Nazarene, which was my first window into US death metal because I was stuck in European death metal scene. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like I thought the hardest was the European stuff, but then I heard this album and I was like, yeah. Now I've discovered brutal death metal. So yeah. And I've talked about this album to great lengths, and John McEntee has too, with an episode with it specifically for this album. So I'm not gonna dwell on that album much more. Oh, you got it signed by all?
I just got it signed on Saturday by Craig
Oh,
Pillard.
nice.
The
Nice.
singer.
Yeah.
I just met him on Saturday, and he signed a bunch of my other stuff that I had.
Cool.
Cool.
So what do you got next, Toby?
For number 2, I got my good friends band Bolt Thrower with For Victory. It's my favorite album of theirs. I'm good friends with Carl, the vocalist, and it's also his favorite album of Bolt Thrower, even though he is sick and tired of talking about the band. He has told me that it's his favorite album because I feel I just want to repeat what I said on that death metal episode. It's like it got a bit of everything they have done before put into a perfect mix because you got the ferocity and you got slower parts, and it's like the lyrics is like I feel like Carl evolved lyrically on every album. So on this album, it's like it's just so good lyrics too, and it's the sound is really good, and it's kind of it has the most variety too of songs than the previous albums. So for me, it's like it was my first new album of Voltrover, and I had the previous albums. As for number 1, I got to be a little careful here because the album is If the Lights Takes Us. I can't say anything more. It's my favorite death metal album, my black metal album, and there's no album like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to it to this day, and it also has keyboards in it, and it's supposed to have a different track on it. If you get an earlier promo, you get the White Light in the Forest instead of Emptiness on the last track. But I guess he changed his mind right before releasing it. The album was actually recorded back in '92, so it's like it took its time to. And he also recorded it. Like guitar is recorded through a cassette tape recorder. So it's just recorded to make the worst guitar sound, and the keyboards is he has told in different interviews that it's so simple, it's so stupid, but he did it on purpose. It's like it's people think that he is bad at doing things, but they don't get about the black metal scene. They did thing on purpose. It was a movement against a stained church in Norway. So it's like it's anything to piss off the Christians. They did. So it's on purpose. So
All
that's why
right.
it's number one. If Lights Takes
Thank
Us.
you. So as we're running, this is taking a long time. So I hope everyone's still watching on YouTube channel. But we're heading to James next. So let's hear what you got to say.
All right. So this was
Thanks, Obi.
All good.
really hard to nail down 5 records. I've been going back and listening to a lot of stuff and going, man, I can't squeeze that one in there. No, I can't, because this one's got to be in there. This was a rough assignment. This is a great year of music for me. This is a terrible year of my life. I'm 13 going on 14. There's a lot of awful shit going on in my house.
You're born in 81?
What's that?
You're born in 81?
I was born in 1980, so I'm 13 going on 14 at this point.
Right. Okay, so you're older than me. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of bad things going on in my house, a lot of bad things going on with my family. But it was a fantastic year for music, man, and it was one of the things that got me through all the horrible shit I was going through. So number 5 for me is going to be Danzig 4. Really love this album. I bought it the day it came out. Last album with the original lineup of Glenn Danzig and Chuck Biscuit on drums, and John Christ on guitar, and Eerie Von on bass. This is where the industrial stuff started to creep in just a little bit, and they lost me after this. After Danzig 4, I'm really not a fan of very much of what came out after this. This original lineup was just so goddamn good, and I don't know why Glenn dissolved it. The tracks on here, Brand New God, Little Whip, Going Down to Die is so good. It's so dark. Until You Call on the Dark, fantastic song. Sadistical is where you start hearing drum machines and looping and samples and stuff. Can't Speak is a big hit off of this one, and that's another one where you start to hear Glenn's trying to, he's starting to get into Nine Inch Nails and Ministry and Marilyn Manson and that stuff, and you hear that starting to creep into this. I Don't Mind the Pain is fantastic, and my favorite song off of this is actually lyrically a little creepy. The Stalker song is one of my absolute top favorites, if not my top favorite off this, because the lyrics are just so dark and creepy, but then the music matches it. What John Christ is doing on the bass and the rhythm section is just so phenomenal. This is such an evil, dark album, and underrated one, because it doesn't really have it doesn't have Mother on it. It doesn't have Her Black Wings. It doesn't have a big hit like Dirty Black Summer. There wasn't a giant hit off this, but it's just such a good album. So
see, I'm not familiar with that album, but just because now you said you were kind of taken back by like the bass parts, and now that I just started playing bass after I've been playing guitar for 36 years, now I want to look into it.
Yeah, dude. Definitely wrap your ears around Danzig 4. It's fantastic.
I listened to that this past week for the first time, I think, since the 90s, and I forgot how good that was.
Nice.
I was like, damn, this is
What's
awesome.
up, Christian? I didn't notice that you were
I snuck in here late, so.
All right.
Yeah, I broke that one out the other day as well.
What was that, Tony?
Said I broke that one out the other day as well. Check
Nice,
it out.
good.
It's been a while.
I'm glad you did. Number 4 is an album that I have waxed poetically on this show twice about before, on the Southern Rock episode and on the Zakk Wylde episode. So I'm not going to, go too far into it, but Pride and Glory, debut album.
I thought it was this one. I thought for sure it was CFC.
1994, killer record. It's just front to back. And I loved it when it came out, but it's an album that as I've gotten older through the years, I've appreciated a lot more. And
Yeah.
it climbs further and further up my favorite album list. So first the only Pride and Glory album.
One and done. Yeah.
Yeah, one and done. Fortunately, I would love if he did another one.
Yeah.
Because I think he would slam it out of the park.
I got to see Pride and Glory once.
Really? When?
They opened up for Leonard Skinner. Albert, and Wilkes-Barre. I can't remember exactly what year, but my wife and I went.
That's awesome.
And I think it was
94.
Skinner there.
Probably 94, Keeler.
Yeah.
Maybe it was
95.
It was
95.
95.
somewhere around.
Endangered Species album, Skinner?
Huh?
Maybe.
I have no idea. Yeah. I just remember seeing them with Skinner. I couldn't tell you what Skinner was touring off of.
That's awesome.
Cool.
So yeah,
Continue
there's
on.
my number 4. I've talked about it already. You guys know I love it if you've been watching this show.
Yeah.
Zach Wilde's my dude. I love him to death. So there's my number 4. Number 3, I've waxed poetically once over on this show in the Doom episode. Corrosion and Conformity.
There you go, Ralph. You were one behind.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew he was going to bring it up.
Just a perfect, for me, a perfect album. There's not one, even the interludes on this, Without Wings, Mano de Mano, 212-11313. Just the interlude things on this are fucking awesome.
I'll always remember this showing up on Beavis and Butthead.
Yes.
And Clean My Wounds. And just when it starts, as soon as that and then you hear them going, yes. And then you see this dude hightailing it through like a boneyard, and Beavis just goes, 105, 105, I got a wild man running through cemetery. Wild man running through cemetery.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting, bud.
No, dude, not at all. I fucking love Beavis and Butthead. I grew up on that too.
Oh shit! Every time I see this, that's all I think about. It just takes me back, man. Awesome pick.
Whoa, killer album. Great vocals, great guitar, great bass. There you go, Anthony.
Yeah.
Another one. Listen to the bass on this fucking thing.
This one I own, and now I'm just gonna re-immerse myself in it, because that's what I've been doing now. I've been like rediscovering albums and going, I've never really picked up on that bass line before. Holy shit, that's intense.
Mike Dean is a nasty bass player, and unfortunately, he just walked away from Corrosion of Conformity. So that really sucked.
Sadly.
I'm gonna swear in James's church. I have never heard a song of that band.
Really?
Well, now you got to listen to it.
Listen to Animosity. Animosity blows this away. This album away.
Blind. Listen to Blind. That's the thrash album.
Technocracy and Animosity blow away everything.
Animosity.
And Technocracy
COC has a very varied discography, especially like from that first up through the first one. You know, it's like a different type of band.
Eye for an Eye was the first one. They were more punk, and then they went crossover, and they went totally different opposite direction.
Raleigh Hatchet, right, Tony Dio?
That's it. Not quite though. There's America's Volume Dealer was the Raleigh Hatchet record.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's the record Reed walked away from and said, you guys sound like Raleigh Hatchet. Anyways, number 3, COC Deliverance. Number 2, man, this album means so much to me. And going back and listening to this, it really gets me emotional. It really makes me miss the front man. It reminds me of a lot of just bad days I had back being 13 years old in 1994. And it's just from beginning to end so good. Soundgarden Super.
Oh, yes.
Now,
Yes.
you want to talk about bass players that make a difference. For me, when Ben Shepherd came to this band, they were a completely goddamn different band than they were before with Bad Motorfinger and then going into this one. Just the bass stands out so much more and is so much more of an integral part of what this band turned into for those couple records. I like Down on the Upside as well, but Super Unknown is just, I mean,
Great album.
you got the one goofy track in there with Half, which Ben Shepherd actually sings. It's kind of a throwaway thing. It really doesn't do anything. It just kind of sits there. But oh my God, from the beginning with Let Me Drown, My Wave, Fell on Black Days is one of my top favorite things that Chris Cornell has ever done in his career. Mailman.
Yeah.
What a great Sabbathy, dark, grinding song. That whole chorus, I'm riding you all the way. Oh, just so disgustingly good. Yeah, Black Hole Sun is the one everybody remembers. Spoon Man's a great song, but then the 4th of July.
And that's dark one. That's dark.
I think they're tuned down to A flat on that song, and you can hear it. It's just so disgustingly, bone crushingly, step on your balls heavy. This is a master, for me, a masterpiece album. Unforgettable, top killer record from this band.
That's definitely an honorable
the
mention
Super
for me
Deluxe
too,
edition of
James.
it.
Cool.
So that's my number 2, Soundgarden Super Unknown. My number
Great pick,
1,
man. Great pick. Great pick.
my number 1,
Yep.
Pantera Far Beyond Driven.
That's it. I'm sending this guy a friend request.
You guys are buds now. Man.
I figured we were going to get along, Anthony, once I saw Metallica and Guns N' Roses behind you. So
There
this
you got
is
the US cover. Tony got the US cover.
the original band cover with the drill bit going into Dimebag's arse.
So, oh my God, I was today years old. Well, actually, no, not today, but I only learned about the band cover like a year ago, and I bought this upon its release. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's the original, the band
I had
cover.
an original. I had it original on vinyl with this cover when it first came. It came out
wow,
like a
that's
couple
a lot of
days
money.
ahead of.
You
came
can
out a couple days ahead of time before the
I don't
CD.
know where I was. I don't know where I
you
was,
can
Ralph.
you can still get that press on that same cover, Tony. You can get both those covers new.
Yeah.
Yep, still. Yep.
Yeah. So this one just talk about this is another emotional album for me because when this came out, again, I was going through a lot of terrible things in my life, in my house. My dad was really a terrible person and was one of the biggest bullies in my life. He was an awful drunk and he liked to mentally, verbally, and physically abuse the shit out of me when I was a kid. So when I first sat down with this record and heard the song 25 Years, sit down and listen to that song and read the lyrics to that. And that's about living with a terrible, abusive father.
Yeah, that'll hit home.
That really just punched me in the gut. And I went, fuck, Pantera wrote this goddamn song for me.
Yeah.
I remember showing the lyrics to this song to one of my therapists when I was in school at that point, and she started crying. She's like, I thought all this music you listened to was all like I Love the Devil stuff, but this is so emotional and raw. She was literally crying just reading the lyrics. For for that song alone. But then again, Slaughtered.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
Slaughtered.
Fuck yeah.
How good is Slaughtered?
That
Dude,
is one of my
song
all-time
rips.
favorite tracks by them.
How good is Hard Lines and Sunken Cheeks?
That's a good one too.
How
Getting
good is
skinned.
Becoming? How good is the fucking opener that is Strength Beyond Strength? And the two big hits, 5 Minutes Alone and Unbroken, are so
Dude.
fantastic. I used to sit and listen to 5 Minutes Alone and think I would just love to have my mother locked outside and be in the room 5 minutes alone with me and my dad with that song playing and just beat the fucking
Yeah.
piss.
Oh shit.
I might get demonetized after that story, but great.
Yeah, we probably will. But you know what? I'm going to end this with
Yeah.
the cover of Planet Caravan is the only time in my life that I've ever heard a Black Sabbath cover where I said, I like that better than the original.
Great cover.
That's admirable. That's an admirable statement. That I like that you said that.
The only time, and I've heard a lot of Sabbath covers.
Mhm.
We're going to get into that when we go to honorable mentions, but it's the only time where I've said, man, I like that better than the original. Number
Just
one
Dime's
for me.
outro, just the outro, that haunting. Oh God, I love that.
Fantastic.
And James,
I remember getting that album and I asked my English teacher what using my third arm mean. I didn't get a response.
and
I didn't have a
James,
clue at the time what they was meaning. I was like, so what does it mean? I'm like, nope, they changed topic.
and James, the song that one of the songs I like the best off of that, How Good Is Shedding Your Skin, man.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a
Great,
good one.
great song.
The
James.
riff in that, the riff is disgusting.
And
James,
the
I'll
song
go-
you were talking about that related to your dad, it was there's another album that came out that year, which is a Korn self-titled, and that whole fucking album
fucking
is
album.
about his relationship with his father. And most people
Yes.
don't, that don't know about Korn or anything. And my wife totally related with Jonathan Davis. I became a fan of the band maybe a lot because of Linda, and it hit home to her in the same way. And
Yeah.
his lyrics going on even further on in his career are
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of hatred, and it's mostly towards his dad. And just wanted to mention that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
James,
One little quick tidbit about this release when it released Rock Fantasy once in a blue moon back in the day
Yep.
used to do a midnight release party the night before. So if you're
Yes.
there,
Yeah.
you'd go there
I
at
was at
midnight.
many of those.
And I wasn't even like a huge Pantera fan at the time, but I was like, oh, we were out hanging out drinking, and we're like, oh, let's go over to Fantasy. They're open now at midnight, so we
Yep.
went over
We
there.
would
And,
do the midnight,
you know,
Monday night midnights. Yep.
Another
And we-
badass
this
thing
album,
about
though,
this
being one of
album, it's got to be the heaviest album that ever debuted at number one on the Billboard charts.
Yeah.
And we talked a little
Probably,
bit
yeah.
about how metal lost its mainstream. Pantera, and Phil will tell you all about it if you listen to a concert from the 90s, how they would put it on their back and was in the mainstream. And Phil's like, we're not getting MTV, we're not getting radio play, and we're number one.
No
Phil,
And it was at a time where Metallica was saying like they didn't even want to be called metal.
yes.
Pantera
Yeah.
was flying the flag for being
Yes, they
metal. They were
were.
proud to
Yep.
be
Yeah.
metal.
Yeah.
That was
Yes,
something
they
that I
were.
respected by them, and that's when I started actually really liking them and
Yeah, yeah,
respecting
yeah.
them.
I think this is one of my first Pantera album too, since me and James are pretty much the same age. I think my favorite song of that album is Thrones of Rejection.
Okay.
hey James,
Great
when I
pick.
went go see the Pantera reunion with your boy Zach Wild playing guitar for him. I went
Yeah, I
see
saw
him.
that too.
I went see him in Arlington, Texas. And they
Okay.
had a bunch of people at this concert that were dressed up like cowboys, cowboy hats, all clean and stuff. And when they came on and played I'm Broken, I thought those motherfuckers were about to die. The pit were broke out so bad. They had fucking cowboy hats flying around everywhere. It was fucking
Wow.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dude, I thought them dudes were about to die. They didn't know where the fuck they was at.
It turns into a rodeo.
Dude, Pantera when they played that reunion, they sounded great. I'm
yeah.
not lying.
I saw the tour.
But I thought that there was gonna be a fucking nuke that went off in that fucking stadium. Everybody went fucking nuts.
That's awesome.
I saw that tour in Camden, New Jersey, and I was so glad that I went and saw that version and that tour instead of seeing them warm up for Metallica with no backdrop and just in this damn in the round thing, which I'm not a fan of.
Where did you see him? Where did you see him? You said.
I saw him in Camden, New Jersey.
I believe that there's a bootleg of that show on YouTube.
Oh, it could be, but anyhow, it's a great show. There was some footage.
Every show's on YouTube is a bootleg.
Nowadays there is, yeah.
That's
So
true.
yeah, we're getting deep into this episode, and let's try to keep it moving along. I'm going to go to Mr. Ed Farsley from Armageddon Productions. Then we'll go to Denny, Christian, myself, Dio, and Ralph to wrap this thing up. And we got to do, I don't even know if we're going to have time for much honorable mentions. We're going to breeze through them.
Yeah, we won't even talk. We'll just flash them. Whatever doesn't get talked.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, as we were saying, 1994, very interesting year for music. A lot of things going on. Grunge is still big. New metal, black metal's huge. Death metal's huge. Regular metal, traditional metal is kind of taking a lull at that time. Bands are experimenting or getting a little lame or whatever. But overall, really good year for music. Classic rock too. Just a lot of good stuff coming on. Let's see. A lot of high notes for the year. Obviously, we've been talking about some great albums and some low notes. Personally, the new Korn, the debuts from Korn and Marilyn Manson were definitely low notes for me. Not in any way. I also got to admit, Raven, the Raven album, Glow. Oh my God, their worst album of their career. Let's not talk about that one anymore. And even except Death Row's got some really, really bad moments on it. So. Not all bands doing great stuff that year, but some bands doing some really killer stuff. Personally, my label, Distro Rage Records, was doing great. Put out 2 7-inches that year. Put out a Numbskull Sea of Tranquility split 7-inch. And then I did a 7-inch with Metal Blade Records. We did an Epidemic 7-inch as a promo before their album. My friend Marco Barbieri, we did fanzines together back in the 80s. He was now a big wig over there. Came up with the idea, basically doing a deeper underground dive, trying to get more deeper underground people into the band. And curious, so we did a 7-inch. Metal Blade pressed up 2,000 copies. I distributed 80% of it, and it was a fucking great deal. It was really, really cool working with Metal Blade. On a personal note, my father died of cancer in 1994, and then the end of the year, I got engaged. Got married the next year, so some ups and downs that year, but overall a good year. So some great shows. The Elton John, Billy Joel face-to-face tour was amazing. The Eagles, Hell Freezes Over tour was fantastic. And Pink Floyd, as we mentioned before, got to see that tour several times as it came to New York twice, two legs.
Wow.
And fucking absolutely amazing. Greatest band of all time, but I will talk about them later. Okay, top 5 bands. I'll try to run top 5 albums. Try to run through them as fast as I can. Bolt Thrower for Victory. Their 5th album with more mind-numbingly heavy death metal from the English Masters. When Glory Beckons for Victory. 2 of the greatest songs. Fucking just a fantastic band, fantastic album. God, I miss Bolt Thrower. Number 4. Nobody's mentioned this band yet. Cheap Trick. Woke Up with a Monster.
Wow.
Nice.
Monster of an album. I mean, Cheap Trick was my first favorite band back in the 70s as a kid. Loved them to death. Got to admit, by the time I got into the late 80s, delving so much into underground and just engulfing my life with underground metal, I lost track of Cheap Trick for a few years there. Woke Up with a Monster, running back full throttle back in my life. Fantastic album. Just pure Cheap Trick in every way. Hard rocking music, fucking sexual connotations, just everything you love about Cheap Trick. Just great songs all around.
I gotta say something really quick.
Yeah.
At that party thing that Keeler had for the Pantera album, he had like a raffle, and you can win stuff. And
Okay.
I won that Cheap Trick. And I was like, oh, Cheap Trick.
Did you?
I just wasn't into it at the time. So I was like, "Can I put this back and stay in the raffle?" And then someone else was like, "Oh, I'll take the Cheap Trick."
That's
And then
cool.
my number stayed back in the raffle because I just didn't want it at the time. But
Hey, you got something
because I
better.
was
Someone
hoping to
else
get something more metal.
appreciated.
Yeah, I don't think I won anything at the end, but
Aw.
I wanted to stay in the raffle.
You didn't want your
But
Cheap
just all right
Trick,
though.
You're
though. Huh?
taking the Cheap Trick album.
Yeah, I was like, I put it back.
All
but-
right. Number 3 album, Merciful Fate, Time. Steven mentioned it
Nice.
before.
Excellent album.
Excellent album. Excellent album. I mean, this is the second album since performing. Into the Shadows is just fucking brilliant. I mean, we're not even gonna talk about all Merciful Fate. You can't get better than that. But this album is fucking great. It had a few low moments, like the Mad Arab. I can pass on that. Not the best song in the world. But it had some really fucking great stuff. Let's see here. My Demon, Witch's Dance, Nightmare Be My Name, great song. The ghostly sounding, The Afterlife, just great stuff. I love Merciful Fate. Number 2 album of the year, another band nobody's mentioned yet, Overkill, WFO. I love
Yeah,
Overkill.
great album.
That's a great album.
That's a fantastic album. I mean, I've loved Overkill since I first ordered the
I
Power Black
forgot
Demo.
about that one.
That's a
I
great.
didn't see it come up on any
Yeah.
list. I didn't see that on a list.
Yeah, that was on a list.
I didn't think about it being 94. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
My
album.
first
you said
Overkill album.
94. My top 2 albums popped in my head right away. I was like, because that just means 1994 to me. But I've loved Overkill since I got the demo. Still love them today. They've had a few missteps, a few regrettable albums, but just very few. They've had some really good albums. They've had some amazing albums, and they've had some just absolutely flawless classics. This one is one of those flawless classics.
It's so brutal.
It really is from start to finish. It never lets up. It's just a complete classic. I mean, I loved it first time I heard it. It was one of my ultimate favorite driving songs when you want to drive fast. It's just fucking great. Never left my rotation. Never left my mind. I mean, I still listen to it to this day. Absolute. Every
Me
song
too.
fucking kills. Every song is fantastic. Number 1 album. It was mentioned once before, and I brought one prop out. Didn't bring any albums, but I got my division belt
There we go.
Nice.
back in the day.
Two number ones for Division Bell tonight.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
Pink Floyd. You can't get any better. I mean, Pink Floyd is my all-time favorite band, bar none, over everyone, any genre whatsoever. Love everything they've done from the Piper and the Gates of Dawn to the Endless River. Every song, every album, every facet of the band, I love. This album, I think, Momentary Lapse of Reason. The first, I love Roger Waters' all material. Separating, I thought the Momentary Lapse of Reason was a great album, but it was different. They had some outside writers, a lot of turmoil in the band, courts and all kinds of shit. So it wasn't a focused Pink Floyd album. Great, but not focused. Division Bell was focused. It was the 3 main guys, and it was Pink Floyd all over again. Just fantastic. Every song on that album, just brilliant. High Hopes stands up to a Comfortably Numb. I saw this tour several times, and it just, like I said, my all-time favorite band. I can go on for hours about Pink Floyd, but I will leave it at that. All-time best album in 1994, The Division Bell.
Speaking of David Gilmour, Ice-T and Body Count actually got David Gilmour to come on the Body Count record.
I know. I
Coming
heard.
out. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
My friend
It's
was
good.
joking about it. He's like, how'd
Yeah.
they get David Gilmour to come on Body Count? It's not like something
Weed.
It was
It's
fucking
called intimidation.
intimidation.
And my all-time favorite band, Ed, is Black Sabbath, but my all-time favorite classic rock band is Pink Floyd.
Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah.
right there with you. And I've seen them multiple times on that tour
Yeah,
too. And
every
I've seen them on Momentary Lapse of Reason. I got to
Yep.
see him. And I've seen David Gilmour once live, but I've seen Roger Waters like 8 times live.
Same here. I've seen them all. Yeah, I missed Nick Mason, unfortunately, when he did the tour 2 years ago, and I really regretted missing that one. But I've seen them all.
I don't think I ever heard a Pink Floyd album from start to finish.
Oh my
I'm
God.
so
All right.
outside you guys. It's
All right,
like
I am going to
Pack
be
of
mute.
balls,
I'm going to be
listen to
muting
Pink
Obi
Floyd.
for the rest of the program. Everyone,
Yeah.
bye, Obi.
I'm just being honest there.
Oh, yeah, you're telling the truth. All righty. So Ed, thanks for your time. And I'm going to go to the Northwest Territories of Canada in the Great White North and see Mr. Denny Barth.
Hey,
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
He
Nice
was
to
playing
see you
miniature
guys.
golf earlier today, I saw.
Oh, that was a couple days ago, I think.
Well,
I
it was
don't
on my
remember.
feed today. It was like You and some kids out
Yeah, I
playing
try.
golf.
As much as I'm not a good relationship person, I try to be a good dad. At least I can get that done
Perfect
right.
picture.
So yeah, yeah. 1994, like Miles was one. I was 28. I already had two beautiful daughters. And 1994, Denny Sasquatch Bard. I think like I always thought that I could not like outlive Jesus Christ, and 33 would be it for me. I wanted to be like Glenn Benton and go in with a bang or something.
Yeah.
So so I guess like I wanted to be a good citizen, a good father, but at the same time, there's a part of me that, you know, when you grew up on Venom, somehow you always can get in trouble no matter what you do. So yeah, 1994. I don't know. It was a very cloudy, like mixed with a mixture of reality and surreal environment because I was flying high most of the time. But just a quick funny note, like talking about like corrosion of conformity deliverance and euthanasia. I don't know how, but I ended up in a nudist resort north of Tampa, Florida, in a little town called Lutz, with a couple girls, and then yeah, I don't know how I was there, and I don't know how
Follow.
I ended up there, but I ended up like living naked for like a couple months,
Oh
which
my
was
goodness. This is a news flash. We
Yeah,
haven't
is
heard
it
this
really?
story before.
but yeah, like
That would
but
be
That's where he got the
totally.
Sasquatch nickname. Is during those months.
Ay, ay, ay.
at the resort, they kept playing like Deliverance and Euthanasia. So that's how I was like,
Yeah.
but I was listening to these songs naked. Anyway, okay.
Ay, ay,
My
ay.
top five, number five for me, like every album you guys mentioned, like there's something I love into these records. Uh, but number five for me was Kaya's Welcome to Sky Valley.
All
Uh,
right. Right.
I just like there was something about the singing, John Garza singing in Caius with the heaviness, the extreme low and bottom of like Caius. That was just like, especially on the song like Odyssey, and Asteroid. It's just a cool groove for me, and it worked at the time. Maybe I was like matching my mental state. But yeah, Kaios, Welcome to Sky Valley, to me, always been like through the years, I always go back to it. It's completely seem out of time. Like when I think about 1994, to me, it's like it's still like new music, even though it's like what, like so long ago. But yeah, Kaios, Welcome to Sky Valley. Definitely recommend to everybody who likes like Sabbath and things like that. Punchy as you can get.
Yep.
Um, Number four, Machine Head, Burn My Eyes.
Oh,
Okay,
nice,
cool.
nice pick.
Like I totally get the Pantera, Far Beyond Driven, and I listen to it at the same, but I something like towards like Machine Head. I knew Rob Flynn. I used to hang out with Voivod a lot when he was a kid, just following them around. And then he had Violence that was really good. But something would burn my eyes. Like, first of all, I couldn't believe the drummer was Chris Contos from Attitude Adjustment. Like, what like an amazing drumming performance. And then if you listen to song like A Nation on Fire, like Death Church, Davidian, like it's so heavy, and the use of harmonics and the production, and I mean for a debut like metal album in 1994, it's as good as it gets. Like they can go fast, they can go slow. I don't know. It really worked for me, and not a big fan of everything they have done after that, but like for this record, like right now at that time, me and my buddies, we used to listen to that all the time.
Mhm.
Number three, so similar to Miles with his like Uma Thibodeau like connection with Acid Bat. Um, when it was released, whatever you guys can interpret it the way you want, but whatever. I work in Montreal in a record store right downtown on St. Catherine Street, where a bunch of hockey players used to come, Anthony, like Mike Bossy used to come there, buy his record, and
Bossy?
Mike Bossy used to come there, Pat Burns, Luc Robitaille, all
Denny,
those
you
guys
realize
used to.
I'm the only one on the panel that besides Keeler that knows who Mike Bossy is. Come on.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. They'll search it. They'll search it up. But anyway, so yeah, so like in at the time in Montreal, there was a huge like death metal, black metal scene creeping, and everybody was coming to the store to buy this album by Cryptopsy called Blasphemy Made Flesh.
Wow.
And people were like, hey, and I was like, what is this? So then I decided to play it in the store, and then the store manager came to me and be like, hey man, you gotta like, what is this? Like, you're scaring people away, which I thought was perfect. But yeah, like the delivery on this album, like open face surgery, like Born Headless, Lord Warren, like the entire like aura around that band and like the lyrics. Um by Lord, who was actually a school teacher in Montreal. Imagine you go to school and Lord Worm is your like university professor. Like,
Fucking Lord
how
Worm.
can you have a normal life after that kind of education? But
There's
yeah,
still hope for a coming generation then.
Fucking Lord
yeah,
Worm.
they I don't know. I thought like to me, like, aggression was folded a long time ago and we were all that. And when I listened to that, I was like, okay, this would have been like the next chapter, what we should have become. So extremely proud of those guys from Quebec. Just came on tour with them and saw them play most of these songs live, and what a complete like bash in your head type of music. So yeah, that was my number three. Number two, Slayer Divine Intervention.
I'm glad
And
somebody mentioned. I was just thinking, no one's mentioned
I
that album
All
yet.
the stuff.
I
Yeah.
believe like Divine Intervention, to me, it's the last great Slayer record. And
It is.
okay, it's not that I'm not a fan of Kerry King, and I did say like the wrong guitar player died and all that, but I gotta give credit to Kerry King because on this record, his writing and his performance is great.
Yeah.
It's some of the best metal he's ever written. And the entire album has a weird, it's got a really creepy, cool metal, like let's be scary kind of vibe, but it comes across it completely naturally. Um, so yeah, every time and through the years, like I go back and I listen to Chemical Warfare and all that, but sometimes I go back to Divine Intervention because it's some of the best metal like Slayer recorded. It's great.
Agreed.
Then yeah, and then at number one, I know that's why me and Miles were so close, and I guess because I'm French Canadian and he's somewhere in southern Louisiana, there's some connection there. Acid Bat, When the Kite String Pops. Um, to
Hey, there's
me,
two number
like
ones for
this album was completely like underrated, and you talk to like Sam, like from Goatwhore, he doesn't even realize what he's done. Like he doesn't even know how great, how like amazing this record is. He talks to you like, hey, yeah, whatever. Yeah, but holy shit, man. It used to play in my truck so much that my youngest daughter, Ellie, did a ballet recital to Scream of the Butterfly. So and the kids even were liking it, and then asking me like, "Hey, who's John Wayne Gacy?" And like I'm trying to like avoid but I love the clown on the picture. Yeah, don't like it too much, but yeah. So I think that Acid Bat over the years, like that music doesn't get old. Like it's always relevant. It's always to the day, and you can tell it was a bunch of guys that just went with whatever was they were feeling at the time. They had no restriction. zero, like, I don't care if we're like extreme. I don't care if we have acoustic guitars. I don't care what we do. We'll just do whatever we want, and it's just beautiful. So that's it. That's my five picks for 1994,
Thank
which
you.
I barely remember, but I was there.
Well, you didn't have any. Denny Barth didn't have any clothes for a couple months.
I didn't have any clothes for 2 months. I don't know what happened, man, but just living, riding the wind.
We've all got
It
some
was the
very
most Sasquatch encounters in Canada that year.
Well, actually, it was in Florida, right?
Yeah.
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 Oh, he was a the swamp ape. They were calling him a swamp ape.
He's a
then.
swamp ape then, yeah. Swamp ape that.
I had to
All
watch
right.
the Gators. I had to watch
in
the
my
Gators.
in my garage, I have a vintage acid bath poster, and it's a double-sided poster. It has this on the front, and then it has this on the back of it. I bet you
Very
that's worth a
nice.
few bucks.
Only
that
on
poster.
the Rock Fantasy Files will Acid Bath be tied with Pink Floyd for two number ones.
Tied with Pink Floyd, yeah. That's awesome.
All righty. So we've got Christian left. We've got
Yep.
me, Tony, and Count. So I'm gonna go to Christian. Then I'll give my picks, and we'll go to Ralph, to Dio and Ralph, and we'll try to get this thing moving. But it's a great episode. It's very interesting.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
I feel bad. I'm trying. I
Yep.
think Tony Dio might be falling asleep, though. 'Cause he's been. I
Yeah,
know what it's
he
like
lives
to
for-
wait till very
I'm
last.
here.
Who
Yeah.
we just lost somebody.
No, Dennis. They pushed the
Yeah,
wrong
Denny
button.
shut his camera off.
All right. Well, he probably
Maybe
he
he's
got
reliving
bored.
1994 again, and he just doesn't want anyone to see.
All
You're
right,
gonna hate.
Christian, kick it off and let's hear your top five.
All right, so yeah, just like James and over there, 1994, I was 13, going on 14 years old. So it was a year for me when I was really starting to get into metal big time. At the time, like, when you're discovering bands and everything, most of what I was doing at the time was I was either watching Headbangers Ball on MTV, which I think that was the last year that it was on, and also
Yeah.
watching this show right here, Beavis and Butthead. I know we touched on them already tonight. So yeah, most of my picks here, it's going to be stuff that I was getting into in that era. My number 5 pick is an album that it's cheating a little bit. It's actually, I guess it was released in Europe in 93, but came out in the US in 94. Not something that I listened to at the time, but I did discover it many years later. And that one is Strange Highways from Dio.
Oh, right.
Yep.
I know it's, yeah, I was saying, because I know it
Well, it's very
noted as
similar
coming out in
to
93, I think in Europe, but
No,
actually
it's a 94 release. This is a
in
94
the US,
release.
yeah. So that's what I thought. So that's why I'm picking that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually one of my favorite Dio albums. If I'm
Most
talking
underrated
just like
album
Dio
ever.
band. It's just it's different than a lot of the stuff. It's not a Holy Diver, it's not a Dream Evil or what have you, but it's just like it's dark. He's like angry. It's like you get like that angry deal, but it's still freaking Ronnie, man. But yeah, I love the opening track, the Jesus, Mary, and the Holy Ghost. There's that weird like guitar effect or sound that Tracy G has. It like I don't know. You probably, if you know this song, you know what I'm talking about. But I always love that kind of like guitar effect. I commented on some Facebook page or group not too long ago about this album, and I saw Tracy G like my comment. So I'm like, oh, cool, man. The guitarist from that liked my comment. Awesome.
Nice.
But yeah, and there's a video out on YouTube from this tour, 1994, with Dio on the bus. I think if you look it up, I think like Dio on the bus, you'll see this interview. And he's talking about this album, and he's saying, years from now, people are going to say this is, an underrated album. And look, if Ronnie was saying it, it can't be wrong.
Is that the interview where he's shitting all over Vivian Campbell?
It might be, yeah, because he
'Cause
seems
that's
like
on
a
the
little,
bus.
yeah, he's kind of,
Yeah, he's
kind of
drinking.
pissed
He's
in that
drinking.
interview. If you
Yeah.
see it, but
That was later. That was a while
was that
Oh,
later.
that
later?
was a little later. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
know
Yeah. I
it's
don't.
on the bus, so I would think that was what had come up. But
Yeah, but I know it was this tour, and yeah, they go over like pretty much his whole discography up to that point, and he's kind of like commenting on all the albums, like Rainbow Rising and all that. And but yeah, no, it's a good one. It's a classic. It's one of my favorites from Dio. Number four for me, this one's already been mentioned tonight, and that's Deliverance from Corrosion of Conformity. So, yeah, so CSC was actually my second concert ever. I saw them on this tour. It was at the show was actually in 1995. It was that summer. Um, the first concert I went to ever was also an album from this year, so I'll get into that in a few moments. But yeah, this one was the first show that I went to where I didn't have to leave early, and it's the first time where like me and my friends were like crowd surfing and moshing. My brother gets thrown over in the 21 and over section, and then he gets thrown right back over. Uh, so yeah, that was a fun that was a fun show. Um, that was at Toad's Place in New Haven, Connecticut, and yeah, that was
Nice.
August of '95. Um, Number three pick, I think this is one that's already been brought up. That's it's kind of hard to see it on my screen, but it's Euthanasia from Megadeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean Megadeth at this point, 94, I would say probably Megadeth and Slayer, and I'd probably even say Metallica as well, probably my favorite like three bands at that point. So by the time I bought this the day it came out, and like I was primed for it because I had just, you know, bought all the previous albums by that point. So I was already, I was already familiar with everything else they did beforehand. So I was excited that, I get to buy a new album that was coming
Did you
out.
buy the blue plastic cover?
No, this one's clear, not blue.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know they had that in blue, clear blue plastic.
Originally in blue over here at least.
Really? No, my version doesn't have that, but yeah, Reckoning Day, Addicted to Chaos. I like the last track Victory because they're the lyrics are like calling back all the previous
Yeah,
album.
such a great track. Such a great
Yeah,
track.
I just thought it was kind of cool that they did that. But yeah, really from start to finish, it's a good album. It's not like my favorite Megadeth. I think I like it a little bit better than Countdown to Extinction. Hard to tell, but I don't like it better than any of like the first four, maybe Countdown. And then, after that, I kind of fell off the train a little bit after this album when they were with the cryptic writings, and then, I didn't really start listening to them again until many years later. So that's my number three. Number two, this one also came up. Slayer, Divine Intervention. Um, yeah, it's kind of hard to see with my screen with the reflection, but mine had the black case on it originally. I don't know
Oh,
what
nice.
that one right there. I don't know what happened to it, but I remember like buying this CD, opening it up, and then you see like the dude with the Slayer carved in his arms. I thought that was so badass. But yeah, this one, Killing Fields, we get like that drumming at the beginning. First record with Paul Bostaph, and yeah, I mean, look, he's not Dave Lombardo, but he's still pretty damn good, and he definitely does a good job on this album. And it's great that they just, they put him front and center right for the opening track. But
Hell
yes,
yeah.
yeah, so many great ones on here. Killing Fields, 213, title track, Circle of Beliefs, Fictional Reality, start to finish, just an awesome album. And
so here's my album flap fully signed by Slayer at that time.
Nice.
Cool. And I'm just gonna go with my number one pick right here. And this was my first concert that I went to back in 1994. And it was this one, Guar, This Toilet Earth.
Wow.
When you're
I remember that one.
13 going on 14 years old, and you're some of the things that these guys are singing about, which
The Road Behind was on that one, right?
no, Road Behind was America Must Be Destroyed, the album before.
Damn it.
So this one has Saddam Agogo, Jack the World, um BDF, which is a song that got removed from the album later on. I can't repeat the lyrics on that because you'll definitely monetize for that, and probably most any War stuff. I like the last track too, the obliteration of Flab Corp 7, where it's like the lyrics, it's like basically they attacked the wrong planet. They're supposed to attack
Yeah.
Flab Corp 6. But some of the lyrics that these guys are coming up with is just like so, I don't know, ridiculous. And it's so
Most over top lyrics there were back then.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
more
yeah,
than any
definitely.
punk band, any death metal band, they had some
Yeah.
of the most offensive lyrics.
And I think this was at like the peak of their most offensive, because some of the stuff they were doing
Yeah.
after this, it's like they kind of went away from being that offensive. So yeah, and the fact that I got to see them on this tour was great. It was sad that
I've seen them a couple times on that tour.
yeah, it was actually my 14th birthday present was actually going to see Guar for their show, but I had to
Awesome.
leave after like the third or fourth song because it was a school night, and my stepdad gave me a ride. He's like, "Oh, we got to go." I'm like, "God damn it!" Another funny thing, there was a band that opened for them called Bile, which is like I don't know if anyone's
Remember
familiar
them.
with them.
I love Bile. They were fucking awesome. Suck Pump is like the best industrial album ever.
You
Yeah, I
like that? You
remember
like that? They got man, the crowd wasn't into them at all. They were getting booed like real bad. My friend bought like the t-shirt and the CD, like he thought were the I didn't get into them too much, but I mean, it was really like, I mean, they were technically the first band that I saw on a stage, and I just like thought it was funny. Like everyone's like booing them, like, you guys suck, get off.
I seen that tour at the Limelight.
Yeah, I saw this one at Toad's Place in New Haven, but it was the only, like I said, it was the only concert where I ever had to leave early because it was like a school night. COC, which was my second one, that was over the summer, so I didn't have to worry about going to school. But then any shows after that, I was getting old enough where I was either riding with a friend or something else, so I never had to uh-oh, gotta leave early, school tomorrow. So yeah. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Christian. And
You're welcome.
thanks and we got the whole band together tonight, boy. We got the full orchestra on the Rock Fantasy Files tonight. So I guess I'm just gonna give my picks now, and we'll let Dio and Ralph is back clean up here. There's a couple things. My original top 5 was not in really any particular order, but I do have the Pantera, Far Beyond Driven. On it. I have this one hasn't been mentioned other than my monologue, the Testament Low album, which
Yeah, great album.
I thought
one of my honorable mentions.
Was a great album with Dogface Gods.
Yep.
It was one of the bands that's the Testament, of course, were one of the thrash bands that got heavier in the 90s. And this is like the start of that. They looked around and saw the other guys getting more commercial and said, we're going to pull out and start doing death metal stuff. Of course, got members from Death in the band in the 90s and everything else. So my number 3, I guess, is not real particular order, is Emperor and the Nightside Eclipse. Some of these albums I didn't like. Emperor, I didn't listen to this. I got into black metal a little bit after that. I wasn't really listening to it then, but I had a guy named Andy Newton that worked for me.
Andy,
in the 94 into 95, and that's all Andy played in the store was black metal. And then
and Wesley Willis.
And Wesley Willis, of course. And Wesley Willis was at a Pantera record release party, but was for, I think, the Great Southern Trendkill. But anyhow, another episode. We should do a Wesley Willis episode sometime.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm gonna pull up the pick.
So then we got Mayhem, The Mysterious Tom Satanis in my top 5. I was lucky enough to see Mayhem do this tour where they revisited the album and played it in entirety. I saw it at the Irving Plaza. And then, of course, we sponsored one of these shows at the Chance Theater in Poughkeepsie, New York.
There you go, Steve.
Yeah, there we go. Rock Fantasy anniversary parties we had.
I got a Polaroid with Wesley at Rock Fantasy too.
Do you? So the
Not
Mayhem tour at the Chance was where they played, which was shocking that because the Chance, booked a lot of underground stuff at times, but they'd go through periods where they didn't book anything like that, and we're like, wait a minute, you guys booked Mayhem to play there? And that's when Cal Getter was helping me out with bookings then. And he was booking stuff there. And, you know, he would always talk to me, hey, what should we do this tour? Because he would bring in some of the underground stuff. He goes, no, I didn't do it. Frank booked Mayhem. And it was just a killer show and packed the place.
That
And
show was so amazing. I love the way that they came out with the cloaks, but they
Mhm.
had themselves backlit with the light, and they
Yeah.
just left it like that the entire show. It had such an
Yeah.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that show was just amazing.
And my number one album, which probably will be my number one if we're going ranking them, and no one's mentioned this album, and it's a fucking classic. And I'm seeing this band on Sunday, and they're playing a couple songs from it. One could be my favorite band, one of my favorite bands. I've got many favorite bands, but Amorphous from Finland with Tales from a Thousand Lakes. Songs like Drown Maid, Into Hiding, The Castaway. To me, it's like a perfect record. And I love Amorphous, and I get to see them again. I missed them on their last tour. They're supporting the Halo album still, and they're with Dark Tranquility on the road. So I'll be a very happy camper Sunday night down at the Gramercy. Since time is a factor here, I'm just going to give some of my honorable mentions right now, so I don't have to go again. No one's mentioned this album, and it really should be in my top 5 somehow. It's Black Sabbath with Cross Purposes. I love Tony Martin Sabbath. I don't think it's his best album with them, but I thought it was great. And I remember going to see them on this tour with Ralph, and Ralph was a little upset on the way on. We got the he was drinking a lot, and he was picking on one of my friends in the car, and he was talking about how he got to see the fake singer or something at that time. He wasn't a fan. So
You know what I remember more than anything from that show is that it was my first time at the Roseland. It was Motorhead, it was Morbid Angel, Motorhead, and Black Sabbath.
yes,
And we couldn't find a parking spot right away. So as we were circling the place, me and Brad both had to piss so bad. So we were just like, let us out here and you go park and we'll find you later. So you let us out, and Brad went in there, and he'd been there before. So he went downstairs for the bathroom, and I didn't know what a bathroom was. And then Morbid Angel started. So I had to piss so bad, but I sat up front for the whole Morbid Angel set because I didn't know where the bathroom was. I didn't know
yeah.
it was
By the time we had parked, I think we missed the whole Morbid Angel set by
Oh,
the
they were
time we
so good
parked
that
and got in. I remember seeing.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad we
Motorhead.
got in, but
So my other honorable mentions, no one's mentioned this album. Enslaved released Frost that year. Halloween, who I dumped for many years because they got really kind of crappy. Halloween were kind of back, put themselves back on track with Master of the Rings. Pride and Glory was mentioned already. Slayer has been mentioned. And of course Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies. I know it's not a heavy album, but I love that damn record, and I originally had that in my top 5 tonight. So those are my honorable mentions and my picks tonight. And I appreciate everybody coming on. It's been a great episode. I hope you guys that are still watching us on YouTube, if you are, I'm your number one fan because people don't usually watch this long. So and you can always watch part of it and then come back the next day and listen to the rest. I was talking to a customer of mine today. He said he's an insomnia. He had some problems sleeping, and he actually listens to us to go to sleep at night. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But he said it reminds him of like his youth and like hanging around with his buddies talking about music, and he actually loves the show. So
I actually do that sometimes with YouTube videos.
do you?
Yeah,
Cool. So
helps me go to
Mr.
sleep.
Tony Dio, I hope you're still awake and your house didn't get washed away down there in North Carolina. Our heart goes out to any of our viewers that are from that area. That crazy. I see some of the stuff that went on around Asheville and
the western part of the state. Yeah, it's really bad. It really is. Luckily, we didn't have that here. We just got a lot of rain. We had some tornadoes and stuff, but still standing. So. Yeah, 1994 for me. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool bands, a lot of good concerts. it was a big changing point in metal. You had the kind of grunge was kind of at its peak, and the new metal thing was starting to come in, and you had so many, you had industrial and death metal and just straight up heavy metal, and everything was kind of out there to discover. And but myself, I mean, this was kind of tough. I mean, it was a lot of stuff that I did get into that year. I'm gonna start out with you guys. Actually, Denny mentioned Machine Head, Burn My Eyes.
Yeah.
Great record, excellent record. I listened to this so much when it was a new album. There's a single for Old that Chris Contos and Logan Matter autographed for me.
Oh, nice.
But
Thanks for Logan.
But yeah, Burn My Eyes, such a great record. Just great riffs, grooves. At the time, I thought it had elements of, because I was big into Sepultura at the time, and it kind of had elements of Sepultura, elements of Pantera, all mixed together. And I mean, they really came up with some really, really good songs on this one. They never did anything else after this that I cared for at all. Matter of fact, when the second album came out, I was really disappointed. I went to see him on that tour and was supposed to do an interview with Rob, and he blew me off that afternoon. Was a complete prick. And Logan Matter actually did the interview with me. Really cool guy, very cool guy. And then when that third album came out, Burning Red, I was like, ugh. I mean, people think Cold Lake is bad. That's the worst metal album. That's the biggest letdown metal album ever. I mean, those guys completely sold out big time. And I never forgave them. Fuck Machine Head. This is the only good album they ever did. Yeah, they came back, but now fuck them. Yeah,
I can't stand that band.
The later stuff that they've come out in recent years, I could give a rat's ass about. This is a great record. But other than that, don't care anything for them. We've mentioned, James and I love this record, Pride and Glory. Just excellent. I mean, can't say anything else about it. I guess it hasn't been said. It's just fantastic. Southern rock, a blues rock, but with a metal edge from Zakk Wylde and the boys. Great record. We talked about this, Deliverance from COC. I was such a fan of the Blind album and had gotten to know some of the guys in the band. And when this one came out, it was kind of scary. What are they going to go to? Because I knew that Carl was out, and I really liked Carl and liked his vocals, and didn't really know what to expect. And yeah, I mean, they came out storming. I mean, great record, a lot of good songs on it, very well written. I saw one of the early shows. I think they did a couple of shows and maybe in Asheville or somewhere, but then they did a couple of shows in Raleigh at their hometown where they started at the brewery, which was a really small club, and they had to do 2 shows like 2 days in a row because the club is so small. And they were playing stuff from this and all, and but it was cool. It was a good era for the band. The next couple of albums, they kind of went on, and like you guys said, they went from being a punk band to a thrash band to crossover to going more southern edged, and that's when when they were going in that southern rock style. But it's so many good songs on here. I mean, Clean My Wounds and Albatross, 2 of the best songs ever. Great stuff. Going back in time for an older band here. Nobody's mentioned this. This was the Motley Crue 1994 record. Love this record. This is my, after the first 2 albums from Motley Crue, this is my 3rd favorite record.
Same.
This sounds nothing like Motley Crue. It sounds nothing like Motley Crue at all. They've got this really super heavy guitar tone on this album. The songs are heavy. They still got a little bit of a blues bass, but it's like so heavy. It's got a groove to it. It's got a very grunge sound in a way. They were definitely taken from Soundgarden, I think, in a way. But John Corabi is the lead singer on here, and he has got a very kind of husky, bluesy voice. Sounds nothing like Vince Neil. And it's just a totally different record. I think that this record didn't do well at all. Actually, I think it went gold.
I hardly sold any of those when it came out.
I think it may have went gold because I think it did sell a lot, but it didn't sell like their past records. And I think if they had released it under a different band name, maybe as a new project, and it would have been a good time to do it at that time period. I think it would have been a better selling record for them. I think it would have been more popular. But you know, I saw them on this tour, and it was like hardly anybody there. I mean, it was like a an amphitheater, and there may have been 2,500 people there, but it was King's X and Typo Negative on the bill with them. So it was an excellent show. But yeah, really good album. I mean, Uncle Jack's such a killer song in here. Power to the Music, Hooligan's Holiday, which I've actually got a CD single for here that John Corabi autographed for me. Misunderstood, great song. Smoke the Sky, Hammer, Till Death Do Us Part. Just some great tracks on this. And like I said, if you don't like Motley Crue, but you kind of like a little bit of the grungy stuff, check this out because you might dig it because it doesn't sound anything like Motley Crue. And my number one from that year was one that kind of took me by surprise, actually, when I first heard it. It's A Handful of Rain by Sabotage.
Wow.
Excellent record. This record was actually done at Chris Oliva, the lead guitar player, original lead guitar player, had gotten killed in a car accident.
Yes.
And John Oliva, his brother, who had left the band, comes back, and this is pretty much a solo record for him. Pretty much, it's John, and he played like all bass, drums, guitar, did all the vocals. Not all the vocals, but wrote all the songs and stuff on it. And then he and Paul O'Neill, the producer, and Alex Skolnick comes in from Testament, does the lead work on it.
Wow.
And Zach Stevens, who had been the singer on the previous album, does all the lead vocals on it. And it was done as a tribute to Chris Oliva. And I pretty much had written off Sabotage by this time. I love early Sabotage, everything up through like Paul the Mountain King, and I really got off at Gutter Ballet. But when Streets came out, that was just kind of like this rock opera thing. It wasn't doing anything for me. They changed singers. John bailed out for a couple years, and Zach Stevens comes in as the lead singer for Handful of Rain album. I wrote that off and never wanted to listen to it. I remember seeing the video. It's like, this kind of sounds like some Queensryche, commercial Queensryche or something. Well, anyhow, I was at a club seeing a show one night, and they played Taunting Cobras, the opening track from this, over the PA, and I'm like, what is this? My friend said, that's the new Sabotage record. It's like, wow, this is killer. So I go out the next day and buy it. Fell in love with it, loved it. Went back, got Handful of Rain, the previous album, loved that. So that kind of just opened my world to go back and rediscover Sabotage and go back and listen to a couple of records that I hadn't listened to. I love Streets now as well. And they've got so many good songs on this one. Here's a single for Handful of Rain. And there's a track on here called Chance. It's kind of like their Bohemian Rhapsody, where it's got layered vocals. It builds as it goes, and it's got all these layered vocal parts in it. And I actually saw, they've become Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which they would over the next couple of years after this record came out. I've seen TSO do Chance live, which I actually did see Sabotage perform it live too in the late 90s. But yeah, it's an amazing song. So many Taunting Cobras, like I said, was great. Handful of Rain, the title track. Alone You Breathe, great ballad tribute to Chris Oliva. Just like I said, just an amazing record by Sabotage. If you like, Sabotage, you like Trans-Siberian Orchestra, check this out. This is kind of where they were going more into that more rock opera, orchestrated type stuff with this one. And I'll mention a few of my honorable mentions. Like I said, I had a lot of stuff we talked about tonight on the Dio, the Pantera, the Danzig, lots of stuff. Couple that haven't been mentioned. 1984. This is a band from North Carolina that I listened to the crap out of this record when it came out. It's called Sex, Love, and Money. They were on Rock World Records, which was a new label that David Krebs started up around this time, and it's kind of it's like thrash metal meets funk, but it's really cool. John Sykes did a live album, Blue Murder album, live in Japan, came out in 1994. Love that. Riot did their first album with Mike DeMeo on vocals, Nightbreaker. Love that one. Just a great record. Kind of very much into. This is kind of when Riot went into their Joe Lynn Turner Rainbow phase. Mentioned King's X earlier. Dog Man, fantastic record, heaviest record. I discovered King's X seeing them open for Motley Crue at that show in 1994. Never got into King's X before that. Just didn't get it. When I saw them live, I was like, okay, these guys are great. I went out next day, got this, and this is one of their heaviest records for sure. Getting into the heavier stuff I haven't mentioned, and I do like some death metal and stuff. I had picked up this Century Media compilation video, and it had this band, Samael on it.
Oh yeah,
Ceremony of Opposites.
That's a great album.
Oh,
Man,
yeah.
it's like parts. It's thrash. It's got death. It's got black metal all mixed in it. And the Baphomet's Throne. I saw the video. I was like, I gotta go get that. That's, yeah. Well, they went really industrial after this because I didn't like the record after this, but I love this one. And one more. Nobody's mentioned anything. Propane. Love this record. The Truth Hurts.
I remember that record.
Such a heavy band. Their first album was kind of rap metal type or whatever, a little bit mixed with some little bit of hardcore and stuff. Thought it was okay. This is just second album. Super, super heavy. He's got almost death metal vocals on this one, and definitely made me a fan. Some great riffs on this record. So I kind of followed them from then on and kept going to see them and buying their albums. So yeah. So that was 1984 for me, guys.
Excellent. So Ralph, do you want to give your top 5, and then I'll have you close the whole show with your honorables?
Yeah, I guess if you want to do it that way,
because then we can
that's
get
good.
Miles and
and it'll cut out some of mine. All right. Yep.
All right. So do your top 5. Thanks, Tony.
All right. So a lot of I've been mixing mine around, trying to there's so many great ones that it doesn't matter if it's in my top 5 or whatever. It's like if someone else has already highlighted it, then I've switched it out. I've been switching them up the whole time, but like Tony just kind of hit one of mine was I had Dark Throne or Emperor or the Mayhem as one of my black metal picks, but I had lined up for Samael, but and I love the later industrial stuff. They're one of the few bands that completely switched their style that I ended up really loving the later stuff too, though. Like I love the early stuff, but I love this album, and
I think I saw that. I think I saw that tour around.
Yeah, you told me you seen them open up for Cannibal Corpse back in the day.
Yes,
in '94.
Yeah.
So then for my number 4, I had like a tie between Crisian, A Merciful Order, an album that most people have probably never seen before.
Yeah.
It's their first album. This is an original copy of the CD, but I was going against Bestial Warlust, Vengeance Till Death, but between the two, I guess I'll go with the Crisian just to give them some love, my Brazilian brothers. And then I'm going to be real fast through this. I'm not going to talk much about it, but Cannibal Corpse, The Bleeding, one of the,
nice.
This such a classic band. This is autographed when I met them all at Rock Fantasy.
Yeah,
they did an in-store at Rock Fantasy. One of the ones I did not want to take out, even though it got mentioned, was Merciful Fate Time. I got the picture disc. I got to see them on this tour. They came to the Chance. It was fucking amazing. Seeing them 5 feet away was just incredible. And I'm wearing a original tour shirt from 1994 when they played the Sportland.
Yes, wow.
Middletown with Incantation at that time.
Yeah.
And it's Soulless. It's like when I was trying to come up with my number 1.
Oh, wow.
I love the first 2 Grave albums. They're so incredible to me. They're one of my favorite death metal bands. And when this came out, it all of a sudden had all sorts of groove to it, but I could hear every word. I could understand, and then powerful. It has a kind of Celtic Frost push throughout the whole album. But it just it's so memorable, and it's the one that I just never get tired of. I knew all the lyrics to this whole album. I could sing along to it. But yeah, Grave, Soulless. And
I would never have guessed in a million years that would be your number 1 pick. So that was really cool.
it switched around, but I thought about it and I said, what if I listened to more than anything from that year? And that's the album, man. That album It took me by surprise when it came out because I was such a big fan of them already, and it was kind of different from what they were doing, but it was still so powerful. And I
play the hell out of that record in the store.
Oh, I
Yeah.
fucking love it. It's
that
so good.
song, man, Soulless.
Yeah,
this
was
this
on
shirt
that was
says
on that
"Soulless
Century
to the
Media
core."
video. Yeah,
This says
yeah, that was
"Soulless
great.
to the core" on the front, and on the back, I think it says "United Souls of America" or something like that. 1994. But that's it. That was quick.
Very cool.
Hey, there's a lot of interesting topics tonight. Miles, got a couple quick for us?
Yeah, quick ones. Cross Purposes was already said. Satiricon came out with the Shadow Thorn.
Oh yeah.
And Rotting Christ came out with Non Servium. Another one that I thought Tony was gonna bring up because he mentioned Sepultura, but Nail Bomb came out with Point Blank that year.
Yeah,
and I thought that was
94. Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty
Here's the
good.
cassette. I got the cassette ready to go.
Yeah,
I
thought
remember
was,
that album.
I
There you
remember
go.
that
Yeah.
album cover.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
good. I like this.
thought that was a pretty good record.
Cool. Ant Master 5. Were you next in line 2 hours ago when we started this thing? You're on mute, Ant.
There we go. Sorry about that. I'll blow through these real quick.
Yeah,
Not
cool.
tie anybody up, but blowing through these, you'll actually see where my musical tastes are because they're all over the place. My honorable mentions are Testament Low, Slayer Divine Intervention, Far Beyond Driven by Pantera, Prong Cleansing, The Bleeding by Cannibal Corpse, The Downward Spiral, Nine Inch Nails, The Rolling Stones with the Voodoo Lounge, Bush 16 Stone, I Don't Care, You Don't Like It, Here's Cock, The Offspring Smash, The Prodigy, Music for the Jilted Generation, Soundgarden, Super Unknown. I never know how to pronounce this band. My only black metal album I own, Samiel, Ceremony of Opposites.
Yeah.
And apologies to Ed, Korn self-titled, just because it was my first introduction into 7 strings.
Great album.
And to quote Forrest Gump, that's all I'm gonna say about that.
And I forgot about that Prong album, man. That's a great,
I didn't see that. I didn't see that come up on the 94 list either. But
Me
it
neither.
never shows everything.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you guys having me. And if you can,
man.
only because Steve did promote me, you can tune into the Gen X Locker right here on the YouTube.
Oh, please do.
Great channel.
All right. So who was next in line? Was it Obi? Was it James? Obi, right? Got a quick honorable or two?
Miles has done his honorables.
Yep.
Yeah, he did. All right. You.
I was surprised that Dennis didn't bring this up, but the debut album of Electric Wizard, self-titled, came out that year.
It's coming in my honorable mention.
Okay. Brutal Truth with Need to Control, Brutality with it's such a long title. When the Sky Turns Black.
Well, really quick on Brutal Truth, so it'll save me for later. But this is like a really cool vinyl box set that I have for this album, and it's really Tony will like this. It's pretty bizarre. It comes with like a 1-inch.
Oh, so nice.
Like a 2-inch record in there, and then it's like the whole album, but it's like they just keep getting a little bigger, and they're just like weird.
It's like those stack things, There's one inside of each one.
I don't got anything like it. I don't got anything else like this, but I just feel
that's pretty
felt like
freaking cool, man.
Yeah, I'm surprised more bands haven't done something like this. Who else has got a fucking 1-inch vinyl?
That's amazing.
So that's it.
That's
Continue,
it.
please.
Wow.
It's awesome.
Yes, and my main honorable mention is Obituary with World Demise.
Oh man, we didn't forget that one. Wow.
I had it coming
94?
as yep, that's 94.
That was on my list.
Album ever made about pollution.
It's okay.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, James.
That's it for me.
Yo. All right, honorable mentions. A bunch that we've heard from so far: Machine Head, Burn My Eyes, Megadeth, Euthanasia, Slayer, Divine Intervention. I forget who said it was the last great Slayer record, but I could
We all did.
completely, yes, I completely agree with you 100%.
Totally.
The last
Absolutely.
completely beginning to end fantastic Slayer record. Biohazard, State of the World Address.
Yes.
Nice.
Somebody
forgot
said it.
about.
All
Oh,
right.
forgot about that record.
Yeah.
Oh
What
man.
I was
What
supposed
a
to make
damn
note of
good
that.
record.
Some on
How
that
about
tour.
this one? The Nativity in Black tribute to Black Sabbath
Yes.
record.
Oh, I sold
Yes.
a ton of
Great.
those.
I
Come on,
purchased at Rock
guys.
Fantasy.
The Typo Negative cover of the song Black Sabbath and the COC cover of Lord of this World are
So good.
out of this
So
fucking
good.
world.
And
Amazing.
Megadeth's version of
the COC
Paranoid.
before him.
Yes, Megadeth doing Paranoid's fucking killer too.
Amazing.
Hey,
The tempo is amazing.
James, quickly read us.
Absolutely.
James, quickly read us off the tracks and the artists on Nativity in Black, could you?
Nativity in Black as
Whoever's got it quicker, I can.
Biohazard, White Zombie,
Biohazard
Megadeth,
After Forever,
Thousand
White
Homo
Zombie,
DJs.
Children of
Oh.
the Grave, Megadeth, Paranoid, 1000 Homo DJs, which features Al Jorgensen from Ministry, Supernaut, Ozzy Osbourne with Therapy, Iron Man, Corrosion of Conformity, Lord of this World, Sepultura with Symptom of the Universe.
Symptom of the Universe.
Yeah.
That was great.
Rips.
Take me to the set.
Bullring Brummies featuring Rob Halford from Judas Priest and Scott Wino Reinwich from The Obsessed and St. Vitus doing The Wizard. Bruce Dickinson with Godspeed doing Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, Ugly Kid Joe, NIB, Faith No More, War Pigs, and Typo Negative Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Killer.
Very good.
Played a lot in the store. Yeah.
I
remember the red one, the volume 2 too.
Yeah.
The Volume 2 one was okay,
Wasn't as
but the
good.
Volume
Yeah,
1
it
is...
wasn't
They
nothing like
did a
this
volume
one.
2.
It was too new metal.
Yeah, they did do it too.
Yeah, way too much new metal going on the second one.
I hardly remember the second one.
I'm with Tony Dio with Motley Crue self-titled, Smoke the Sky, my favorite song. How about reaching back to the glam bands, Dangerous Toys, Pissed, Promise the Moon, fantastic song, fantastic ballad off that, Acid Bath, When the Kite String Pops, and we're talking about bass players, my boy Anthony there. I got to wax poetically quickly about Suicidal Tendencies, Suicidal for Life,
Yeah.
and Infectious Grooves.
And you're
Groove
muted
Theory
again.
Psycho. Killer bass playing from Rob Trujillo on both of these records. You need these in your collection. If you love bass, if you love Rob, you got to listen to both of these records. And
the other bass player for ST, what was his name? It's another Spanish surname. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Rod Diaz is the current guy.
Right. Okay. So he's actually really good friends with my buddy that I grew up with, Audie, back on Long Island. And
no doubt.
He literally just sent Audie's kids to go see Korn because he's filling in for Fieldy.
Nice.
Yeah. The bass player.
So I have a connection with him right now.
Oh, dude.
Awesome.
Yeah, the bass player from Suicidal is the touring bass player with Korn, and he's great. He's great.
That's right. Infectious Grooves, Groove Family Psycho. Listen to the bass.
Great album.
I remember that record.
All the music, all the musicians on this. So the drummer on this is Brooks Wackerman, who's currently in Avenged Sevenfold. He was 15 when he made this record.
He was in a band called.
shit.
He was in a band called Bad for Good. That was like
That's
these
right.
little kid prodigies. Yeah,
Oh
melodic
yeah,
rock
that
record.
was the kid that was in Terminator
The
2.
Steve Vai
Danny
video.
Cooksey.
Yep.
Yeah, and the kid from the Steve Vai video.
Yeah.
Cool, James. Is that your list? Move over to Ed.
That's
Ed Farsley, do you got anything left for us?
Yeah, I got a couple honorable mentions.
He got oodles.
I don't think anyone's mentioned this one. Sodom, Get What You Deserved.
Yep.
All right.
Altar from Holland, Youth Against Christ, great death metal album.
Oh wow.
Live album, The Eagles, Hell Freezes Over, just fantastic. Can't beat the Eagles.
Yeah, I love
Uh,
that. It's great.
We've all mentioned this. We've mentioned this one a few times now. Testament Low, great return album for them. Like we said, they were getting weaker and weaker. The first two albums, fantastic. Love Legacy, and they just went downhill from there until Low, which just shot them right back up again. Asphyx, third album, fucking great record. And let me see, I got two more. Oh yeah, Napalm Death, Fear, Emptiness, and Despair. Great Napalm Death. And Tankard, no one mentioned that. Two-Face. There you go.
All right.
Cool.
All right, Denny, put your clothes back on. It's not 1994 anymore.
I do have like PJ shorts on.
Okay, good.
I kind of like went there's a lot of things that you guys mentioned, like the Suicidal for Life. I love that album. But I like other things that nobody mentioned yet for me. I think nobody mentioned King's X Dogman.
I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I
you did.
mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And then
Great
the
record.
other one I really like is like a good companion to Alice in Chains Jar of Flies is Neil Young's Sleep with Angels.
Wow.
Oh wow,
It's
yeah. Right,
it's
right,
a
right.
really good, like if you guys like you know, a lot of acoustic stuff and things like that album completely rocks. And the other thing I really like on the punk side, you know, growing up with GBH and like Exploited and all that stuff, like I really like that Rancid Let's Go album. It's before they kind of
Yes.
before they kind of like broke big. You want to talk about good bass playing? Check
Yeah.
out Rancid Let's Go. That guy Matt Friedman can freaking play.
Yeah.
And it's a band that, you know, of course they got commercial success somehow, and I think the singer even had Madonna asking him on a date and he said no. But yeah, so Rancid Let's Go was a good album. The rest, I think everybody mentioned what I have on my list. Completely aligned with most of you guys.
All right. Christian, you got anything?
Yeah, actually, I had quite a few. A lot of these were mentioned already. So,
Okay. Yeah, let's
but
hear 'em quick
I'll
and
just
then-
run through them real quick. I do have a couple that weren't mentioned, but first one, I think someone mentioned, Accept Death Row. Second one,
All
I
right.
got Scooper, The Last Temptation. I don't
Oh
think I've
yeah,
heard
that's
Yeah.
a good album. That's a good
That's
album. I
on
forgot
that's
about
on
that.
this 3-pack. I had that as an honorable.
Yeah, that was a good one. This one was brought up just a few moments ago. Biohazard, State of the World Address.
Yeah.
We mentioned Black Sabbath, Cross Purposes. This is one I didn't hear yet, and that's Body Count, Born Dead.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not as I don't think it's as
Body
good as
counts
their
in the
first album.
house.
Yeah, but
I
Body
couldn't
count.
get into that one. The
yeah,
production
you know
killed
what? It
for me.
wasn't as I don't know. The songwriting wasn't as good, but I liked
No,
it.
not as good as that first one. The cover
Yeah.
of Hey Joe, the Hey Joe cover was kind of cool.
Yeah, that one was good, and I liked the title track. The rest, like it sounded like the first record, but the songwriting just I don't know. It's a little flaccid compared to the first album, I think.
Yeah.
This one was brought up, Danzig 4. Like I said, I was listening to it the other day. It was the first time I listened to it, honestly, probably almost since that album came out. So it was a pleasure to get into that one again. This one hasn't been mentioned, The Meatmen, Toilet Slave.
I never even heard of it.
No, now you have.
Cool.
Merciful Fate, Time. I got the self-titled Motley Crue, 9 Inch Nails, Downward Spiral, Overkill.
My Toilet Slave signed by
Oh, I
Tesco
figured
V.
Ralph
I
had
got him
that.
signed by Tesco V.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I think I just said 9 Inch Nails, Downward Spiral, Overkill, WFO, Pantera, Far Beyond Driven. This one I don't think was mentioned tonight. That's Pentagram, Be Forewarned.
Oh yeah, right. Good pick.
Yeah.
94? Really? Wow.
Yeah, that came out in 94. Yeah.
Wow.
I think they brought up, was it Sound? Yeah, someone mentioned Soundgarden, Super Unknown. James, you mentioned that earlier.
Somebody added as number one.
Yep, that was number one. Prong Cleansing. I know that was brought up just a few moments ago.
Damn right.
Testament Low, that's been mentioned a few times. And then the last one I wanted to mention on my honorables was Nativity in Black, the tribute to Black Sabbath. For me, that was my first exposure to songs from Black Sabbath other than Paranoid and Iron Man. And that was the one that really led me like to trick out the originals, and what was the catalyst for me to
Wow.
actually start like getting into Black
Right.
Sabbath. So I had to
And that's
mention
what
it.
it should do. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, so
On the
Alright.
note that Dennis talked about acoustic albums, Johnny Cash came with American Recordings, the first one, and that
Oh,
was kind
wow.
of a comeback for him.
Yep,
That's
for
right,
sure.
yeah.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
All right, Ralph, take us away and send us home.
All right, so just seen him last Saturday. Low Hometown Heroes, Morpheus Descends, Shadows, Chronicles
Awesome.
of the Shadow Ones. This is
Yeah.
an EP. And All Out War, Destined to Burn, also came out in
Oh, wow.
1994.
Cool.
A couple of vinyl I'll pull out really quick. This is Rich Kids on LSD, Riches to Rags.
Man, it's hard to, it's almost hard to fathom it all. War has been around that long, isn't it?
Yeah, they've been
Yeah,
out
man.
longer than that.
I know
They
they
had
have.
their
I know.
demos were before that. But
Yeah.
great fucking album right here. Cramps, Flame Job, Rockabilly, Psychobilly, fucking craziness. Here's a classic rock one that never been played and it's still in the plastic, but Page and Plant,
Oh,
Oh,
right,
yeah. I
right.
had
No
that
Quarter,
Yeah.
That got a
I
lot of
remember
play
that
in the
one.
shop back then.
Saw 'em on that
original
tour.
copy. This band Arcturus, this is like a three EPs on one thing, and the middle one,
Yeah, My Angel.
Constellation,
Yeah,
came out in '94.
really good.
That's it for the vinyl. Couple cassettes, Dream Theater, Awake.
Oh, yeah. Wow. No one mentioned that all night.
Wow.
We're
Yeah.
Bad
not
Religion,
we're not on
Stranger
Pete
Than Fiction.
Barnum's channel.
I can't believe it.
Dark Side, New York City, great brutal hardcore from New York City. Sodom, I'm going to see him next week down in
Yeah.
Brooklyn with Hyrax and Whiplash. It's going to be fucking incredible. This is a great
Yeah.
album. Get what you deserve. At the
So
Gates,
maybe you look sometimes.
At the
Yeah.
gates.
No
Yep.
one mentioned that at the gates.
at the Gates, Cemetery,
Yep. Cemetery.
Bathory, Requiem came out that year.
I'm thinking of an album. I'm waiting to see if Ralph pulls it out or not.
Pungent Stench, Mondo
Oh,
Bizarro,
yeah, right.
Hypocrisy, Fourth Dimension, Edge of Sanity, Purgatory Afterglow.
Or you have to glow.
Yeah, Steve Killerland now.
There's some Cradle of Filth.
Yep.
They toured actually with Immortal on that tour.
Pentagram, Gorgoroth. I was waiting for that.
Gorgoroth, Pentagram,
Yeah.
Marduk.
Marduk.
Opus
Opus Nocturne.
Nocturne. Yeah, that's a good
What a
album.
great year for black metal. Impaled Nazarene,
El
Yeah.
Nazarene.
Ancient,
Got that original on vinyl.
Altar.
Altar,
Walter's great.
Behemoth. Who knew that Behemoth was putting out stuff way back
Oh,
then?
yeah.
This
Is
is
that the
the
first one? Is that the first
this,
one?
this is an EP, but it's an original version. It's an original copy of the EP. And talking about some punk, Ramones, like Nativity and
Oh,
Black's great,
I
but
played that
Acid
album.
Eaters, yeah.
Acid Eaters
That's
is
a
like
fun
one of the
one,
best
yeah.
covers albums of all time.
I played the hell out of that back then.
This is one of the best EPs of the year. Is Sheer Terror, Old, New, and Borrowed in Blue. I also have a 10-inch version of that on vinyl. There's Gorefest, Benediction,
Yeah.
Brutality.
Brutality.
We got Reverend Horton Heat, some more crazy psycho Billy.
We're missing a New York
Liquor-
hardcore band tonight, so
Yep, Liquor in the
Dolls.
Front. Liquor in the Front is the name of this album, which is a great title for an album. Mephistopheles. I'm not a big ska fan at all, but
I remember
this is
that.
one band that I like about it's like a satanic ska band. It's fucking pretty cool.
That's fucking nuts.
Oh, this.
You
Sick of it
better say
all.
Belphegor with Last Supper too.
Sick of it all. Scratch the surface. There's
Oh,
some
yeah.
New York
Wow, that
hardcore
was
for you.
I played the hell out of that too.
Rollins band. Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
Yes.
Oh, Wait was so good.
Madball set it off.
That's the one I was thinking of, Ralph. I said we
There
didn't
you
talk
go.
about Madball.
And
There you
this
go.
album, I have an autographed poster of this album because they did an in-store Rock Fantasy and there wasn't many people there.
Damn, I
Bruce
hardly.
Dickinson,
Balls
Balls to
Picasso.
Picasso. I thought
Yes.
fucking
Ralph, I
uh,
hardly remember that Mad Bull, and I don't remember even photos from that night.
yeah, and me neither. It's like I got the signed poster, and it was like I remember meeting Freddie as a little kid, but I don't think Vinny Stigma was there. It was only like some of the guys were there.
Was it an organized
It wasn't really an
thing?
organized. I think they just
Yeah.
like heard about Rock
Sacred
Fantasy
Cowboys
and showed up,
now.
and it
Yeah.
was like a quick thing. But
Yeah.
Queensryche has an album out that year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Widowmaker
Promised
with D.
Land.
Schneider with I think
Yeah, that's right. I forgot
Clive Burr
about
is on
that.
this
I
one.
forgot about that one. I was thinking that was
Yeah.
95 for some reason.
Meshuggah Nun EP,
Yeah,
Wow.
no, the Nun E EP.
Cathedral EP.
Cosmic.
My God, Ralph has a lot of CDs.
We have
Was
said nothing yet.
what
No,
was
I think
Cathedrals? Hopkins?
Do you have
Um,
the anal count?
Hopkins is 95.
Everyone should be killed. Do you have the anal count one?
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
right,
I
with
do
the
have that. I
Steeler
do
front,
have that,
right,
but
right, right.
I didn't know that was 94. That definitely doesn't come up on your Wikipedia list, you know, an
No,
anal
it
count.
But
doesn't.
that record,
AC dark web stuff.
There's
is
there's another list that Tracy Stanton gave me. That's
Right, yeah,
secret.
it was probably to have too.
Kingdom of Metal or something, where it really has more in depth. Wikipedia definitely misses a lot of stuff. Yeah.
They got
You
that.
know what it is though, is after I go through my Wikipedia, I go, I got a fucking 100 CDs here. I'm like, that's enough. I don't have to dig deeper. But then
Yeah.
every now and again, I look at certain discographies and I'm like, oh, they must have put out something that year. And then sure enough, they did.
Yeah.
And once you start going through certain bands' discographies, but we got a few days to come up with the list, and it's like you get to a
Unless-
point where you're just like, all right, that's enough. And if
Unless
if I
you-
forget it, somebody else will have it if I don't got it. And
Yeah. Unless
So-
unless you're like Ant Master 5 and you got invited to this party about 1 in the afternoon today.
I was off.
well, that's what's good about like at the end doing this. It's like
Yeah.
here's what we might have
Yeah.
missed, and then
Yeah.
sure enough, somebody in the list in the comments will be like, "Oh, you also
Something.
forgot this and this
Oh,
and this."
definitely
And
be one.
Yeah.
All
That's
right,
it, man.
everybody. If you've watched this whole episode, because it's 2.5 hours,
You deserve a medal.
you guys deserve something. You deserve an in-store with Denny Barth.
With clothes.
Nobody wants that.
With
But I'm gonna
with
wear
clothes.
clothes. I'm gonna
Yeah.
wear clothes. Yeah.
An in-store
Nobody
with
knows it better.
an in-store with Crucial Pain.
Good.
Hell
All
yeah.
right, so anybody that's watching this, please mention your top albums of 1994 in the comments and hit that like and hit subscribe so you'll see what we got coming out next time and on the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. For Tony Dio, and it's great to have Miles of Metal back. I hope you keep coming back. Antmaster 5 is always welcome to be a guest, and go check out his channel, of course. Obi, who's been out hunting like wildcats or mountain lions or something, he's telling us.
Yeah.
James Delisle from
Cougars.
Crucial Pain. And if you're in Connecticut, go check out your record store. What's the name of the record store again, James?
Disc and Dat Record Store
Disc and
in
Dat.
Bethel, Connecticut. Please come fucking support us because god damn we need it.
Yeah, it
I
ain't
got the
easy
business
right
card
now.
over there.
Count
Right.
Ralph is
Listen.
Ed Farsley, Armageddon Production, Christian, and Danny Barth. We'll see you next time on the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel.
All right.